Hello, we're back, and in what is becoming a grand tradition, we're not doing what we said we would do. This, I guess, is episode 24 of Turn-Based Memories. Not really, because we're doing something a little different. In this episode, we are talking about a game called Xanadu Next. And my name is Mel, by the way. And I'm just going to start really quickly with what is this game? Xanadu, spelled Xanadu, Next, spelled the normal way, was an N-Gage game, platform most people probably don't remember. And it was ported over to the PC on Steam about 4 or 5 years ago. And that is the game we chose to play kind of at the spur of the moment. And this is also a Falcom game. So you probably know who they are, but you might not know that Xanadu Next and the Xanadu series, which includes 8 games in total, is related to the Legend of Heroes series, and that means the Trails in the Sky and Trails of Cold Steel games. That connection is long and complicated, and I won't explain it here. But we are going to get into the actual game Xanadu Next, and we're going to compare our experiences. We both played this for the first time. Who's both? Well, that's me and Zoltan. Hi, Zoltan.
Hello, I was here the whole time, and I edited this as a regular intro to any episode of Turn-Based Memories, and you guys had no idea.
Yes, sir. So yeah, we both played this game kind of at the drop of a hat. I mean, it's cheap, it's short. So,
Indeed.
Right, that was kind of the impetus for this.
We were supposed to play, what was it? Eternal Sonata instead.
Right, and I have started playing that game, but we jumped the gun on that episode and we went for this.
We did, exactly.
We did. And I think it's a really good interstitial episode. Like, I don't know, I guess you could call it a Turn-Based Memories episode. The format's pretty similar in the end, but how we got here is a little different. So Neither of us have any initial, like, contemporary first-hand experience with this title.
Right.
On the N-Gage. Like, I don't
on
know
the N-Gage, right.
Yeah, no. And so to give a little context, if you haven't seen what this game is, it looks like a really rough PlayStation 2 game or a PSP game is what it really looks like.
Indeed.
That's the kind of the caliber of graphics that we're talking about here.
Yeah. So before we go on about what kind of game this is, I'd actually like to go ahead and tell people what series this is from and all that. It is a little bit complicated, but I don't know. I recently looked it all up, and it wasn't that hard to me. So this is by Falcom, the same guys who make the East series and the Trails in the Sky series, or the Trails series entirely. And one of their first games ever, I suppose, because this first one, it's called Dragon Slayer. I think it's one of their first games for the PC back then.
Yes.
Came out in 1984, yo. I'm on the Wikipedia page right here for the Dragon Slayer series. And this Dragon Slayer series, I can't remember who all was inspired by it, but I think even, who's the Dragon Quest 1 guy? Yuji Horii. I think even he was inspired by it, even though it's an action RPG.
One of the earlier examples. Falcom is really one of those in the West was underappreciated companies.
Right, because most of their games were coming out just in Japanese on whatever old PC they had back then. In Japan only, right? Including, I think, even the first East game. I think it eventually got ported, but it all started as PC games, did they not?
I'm not sure.
Okay, I think so. So yeah, so the first Dragon Slayer game came out in 1984, but whatever. The point is, they made the Dragon Slayer series. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is it 7? 7 games, yeah. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I'm sorry, 8 games. They made 8 games in the Dragon Slayer series. And the first one is Dragon Slayer. And the second one is Xanadu Dragon Slayer 2. And the game we have just played is not a remake or anything of that particular game, but it is a spin-off of that game, is what it said. And if you look down here, it's like, it's weird. like they make all different versions and spin-offs of all their games because like they made Dragon
That's
Slayer.
kind of why I didn't go into it, is because this is like spin-off central. Like it's not Final Fantasy where you just have different iterations on the thing. There's like little branches and stories. I mean, we can get into it. I don't mind, but there's like the 3 different arcs of the Legend of Heroes branch off from Dragon Slayer, which is part of 2 sub-series.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, there were 8 games, and the second game was Xanadu Dragon Slayer 2, and this is a spin-off of that game. I imagine it probably plays quite similar, but dude, go look up, like, Let's Play Dragon Slayer 2 Xanadu. We're talking really, really ugly graphics from back in the day.
Right.
Like, way worse. I mean, whatever you think about Dragon Warrior 1 graphics, way worse than that.
Right.
Like Atari 2600 level, we're talking, yo.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yo, some E.T. shit.
Exactly. So you probably don't want to, go back and play this for the historical, relevance or whatever. It'll probably drive you crazy. And then how this all connects to the Trails series and all that, well, it turns out the 6th game in the Dragon Slayer series is called Dragon Slayer: The Legend of Heroes. And from there, they started making just the Legend of Heroes games.
Right.
So, like, it's kind of weird. It's like, no, it's not. I can't really explain any better than what I just told you. The 6th game.
I think that's pretty clear.
Right, yeah. The 6th game in the series is called Dragon Slayer: The Legend of Heroes. And then from there on, they decided to continue. The next Legend of Heroes game is called Dragon Slayer: The Legend of Heroes 2. But you might as well just go ahead and call it a Legend of Heroes game, because starting from the next Legend of Heroes game, they just dropped the name Dragon Slayer and decided, okay, this is its own new series.
Kind of like Persona.
There we go. You're right. That didn't happen until Persona 5, right?
Probably. Something like that.
Right.
But that's immediately what my mind was being drawn to when I was reading up on this game. I was like, this is like another Persona situation.
Right, exactly. So in the case of Persona, all the way up till Persona 4, I think Persona 4 as well, it was called Shin Megami Tensei Persona something. Until Persona 5 came out, they just dropped Shin Megami Tensei. So there you go, yeah, just like Mel said. So probably eventually Persona 6 will come out, and it also will not have Shin Megami Tensei on it.
Probably not.
Now, how the hell is this related to Trails? Well, it turns out, just like The Legend of Heroes was the 6th game in the Dragon Slayer series, the 6th game in the Legend of Heroes series is The Legend of Heroes: Trails in the Sky. I think I got that right. Here we go.
I think so.
Yeah. Here we go. Yeah, I'm looking at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I was right. Once again, the 6th game in the series was The Legend of Heroes: Trails in the Sky. I think in the case of the Trails series, though, they all still have the name of The Legend of Heroes added onto it. All of them, I think. So, yeah, nothing to worry about there. That's still actually a part of the Legend of Heroes series. But you could kind of say that the Legend of Heroes is no longer a part of the Dragon Slayer series, though, because they dropped it.
I would agree, yeah.
Right. So anyway, yeah, that's what it is. It's 3 separate series that all started from the 6th game of a previous series. So that's an easy way to put that. There you go, guys.
Yeah. Old company, old series. There's a lot of history in here, like Zoltan was saying. This is one of the, foundational. It has a legacy stretching back to the beginnings of role-playing games and video games.
Yeah, even video games. Yeah, and the thing is, these guys were known well in Japan for being the action RPG guys because Dragon Quest guys were all doing everything turn-based, but the Legend of Dragon Slayer was an action RPG. You just moved around all in real time on that terrible, ugly-looking screen, but that's what you did.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, I think that kind of covered a lot of what I was going to say. I mean, the Falcom games, if you're unfamiliar, like myself, I only have some experience with Trails in the Sky 1. As far as Falcom games go, unless I'm drawing a big blank on some other Falcom game
Have you never played
time with.
Have you never played an East game?
No, I was going to say, so I've never played any of the East games. I've always kind of looked at them because I was always, those were always like, oh, action RPGs were
They are,
always kind
yeah.
of a turn off for me.
Yeah.
So I always kind of put them on a back burner or just kind of discounted them. I'm probably in the middle of changing that opinion slowly as I'm kind of rediscovering series and things I never played as part of this channel,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And I think Xanadu Next, this game was on my Steam wish list. I don't even remember why, for years. Someone
Really?
somewhere,
Hmm.
yeah, someone somewhere did a random review of it, and it looked really like snappy and fun and straightforward. And it obviously is
And
an
it
old
was.
game,
Hmm.
and indeed it was. And after enough time, I just said, yeah, why not pull the trigger on this thing? So I
Hmm.
decided to do it when I had some spare time in between the games that we did for this show. And I was like, oh, this actually makes sense, I think, for what we're doing. And that's where we started doing this episode from. Um, so
Hmm.
yeah, this game is, I mean, like most Falcom games, it's not like top AAA budget quality. It is a
No,
budget
no.
title. Even for its time, the N-Gage was not a top premium level system. The
Yeah. For people who don't know what the N-Gage was, that's the
handheld.
Nokia, and I
Mhm.
think it's by Nokia. That's why it's got the letter N.
Yes.
Yeah. And what they wanted to do, here it is. What did they see? They saw. Oh, I think I remember now. They saw that there was the Game Boy Advance
Hmm.
and also mobile phones, cellular phones were out.
Yes.
And people and so I guess Nokia guys were like, okay, we're gonna like take the world by storm by solving the problem of having to carry both your phone and your
Yeah.
portable game system and put them all in one system, and boom, you have the N-Gage, which if you look at a picture of it,
It's a
man,
monstrosity.
it's
Oh my
crazy
God.
looking. Yeah, and you're supposed to put this thing, which just looks like a way bigger, larger, with way too many buttons. Like, okay,
Way too many buttons.
way too many buttons. But the thing is, so think of it like a Game Boy Advance, but it's like stretched way bigger, of course.
Hmm.
And then yeah, where the X, Y, B, A buttons would be, you have the full dial pad of your
Yeah.
telephone, right? And also a hang up button and some other buttons. And on the left
Yeah.
side, you have the deep the D pad, which is perfectly circular, which makes me wonder: is that double doing double duty by also being can you like turn it to adjust the volume on your phone or something? I wonder.
No idea. I don't know.
Yeah, it's got a bunch of buttons over there on the other side, including the call button or whatever. And
Hmm.
then you put that gigantic thing, a huge ass Game Boy Advance, up to your ear to talk or something.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. That thing was a nightmare, and this is a Windows port of the game. So it was designed as a port to work with a keyboard and mouse. And
Right.
the way we both play it, I believe, is with a controller, right?
Yep. Yep. It went
Right.
smoothly though, actually.
It went sort of smooth. So the Steam identifies it as having partial controller support, and I would say that's accurate
Mm.
because in this game there are certain elements of the menu that you need to use your mouse to interact with, or you could hold a button
Yeah, R2 or
that
something.
will, yeah, on my controller, on my Xbox controller, I have to press the start button
Oh,
to
weird.
then control to bring up the cursor basically, and then use my left control stick to move around like a mouse cursor to select. And then the way the inventorying works in this game, we'll get into the details in a minute, but the way the inventorying works is you have to click and drag a lot. You're not
Mm.
just like selecting elements like on the menu. You are doing that also, but there are times when you need to click and drag a thing from one area in the menu to another area.
Yep.
And you need to have a mouse-like interface for that to work. And it kind of makes me wonder how the hell this worked on the N-Gage.
Oh
Like,
man, who
I don't
knows?
understand how that happened. Why? And I don't know. I don't know what happened. But so the result is I would say everything else is fine control-wise. Just the menu elements are janky
Hmm.
uh, in that way. But I guess let's get into more about the meat and potatoes of the gameplay, right? So this is
Okay.
an
Well, wait. Let's finish off about how to use the controller in case anybody out there hears this wants to
I think
play the
we'll touch
game.
on that as we're getting into the gameplay.
Oh, okay. You want to touch it as
Yeah.
we get into it?
So
Okay.
yeah. So in this case, this is an action RPG where you're hacking and it's a hack and slash RPG. And so you have an attack button that will only engage, and this took me a minute to figure out,
Yeah,
when
me
you're
too.
near a target.
Right. You
There'll be a
can't just.
highlighted
Hmm.
target around, if it's like a lantern or an enemy, your character can attack, and positioning matters as far as that goes. So that's one button there, right?
Yes,
And
an
then
attack button. Yeah.
you can control your camera. You can pivot the camera around. It's kind of an isometric view. It is an
It is
isometric
an
view.
action figure, yeah. But the
You can't tilt up and down, just left and right.
right, but the graphics themselves are full 3D.
Correct. There's
Hmm.
no billboarding, so it's all 3D. It's not sprites or anything.
Hmm.
And in this case, hang on. Okay. In this case, yeah, there is an issue with the menus where, like we were saying, you have to open up to do inventorying. When you collect stuff, you have a limited number of items that you can hold.
Yeah, but it's pretty
And
generous.
I would say it is very generous. I haven't actually ran out of space, but I was also being like kind of
Careful.
meticulous and careful,
Okay.
And as far as the control quirks of it, like I was saying, there's one attack button, there's a special attack button, so you have an array of
Yeah.
4 different skills, and you can press left and right on the D-pad to select the skill you want to use.
I love that system. I really like that.
It's almost like a MMO almost, kind
Oh,
of like a janky MMO.
I guess so. I guess other MMOs are like that. The only MMO I've played is White Knight Chronicles 1 and 2, and that has that system, and I kind of like it in theory, just because you could put a whole bunch of stuff on there, and they're just easy to access a whole bunch of things with just the circle button and the D-pad. I like that.
Yeah. So yeah, you have 4 different skills, and on a keyboard and mouse, you could probably map those to 1, 2, 3, 4 to highlight the skill and press a key to activate. But we were using a controller, so you have to D-pad left and right to highlight the thing. You also have a series of items on a utility belt
Yes,
that are equipped that you can then cycle up and down on the D-pad.
that's genius.
So there's an inventorying, a marshaling of resources. Even if you have access to a whole bunch of skills or items, they have to be equipped to be available to you. And you can open up your inventory, your menu, mid-action and rejigger everything around.
Yeah, if you
And
can
the
keep
action does
attacking.
not pause.
Yeah.
You have to get somewhere safe to do that. And with the menu quirks, such as they are, that can be very difficult to do.
I guess so. I always just waited until. I mean, there was several times actually that I changed equipment during a battle, and it was pretty frantic, pretty hectic. But most of the time, I just either killed everybody in the area first, or I just ran back out the screen and did it in the previous screen.
Yeah, I mean, it's fairly easy to run away from enemies. There's only a handful of occasions where you'll get locked into a room where you have
Right.
to fight enemies. Um, so as far as the combat goes, again, we'll get into the control. We kind of touched on most of the controls, right? Was there anything control specific that we left out so far?
You press one button for just attack, and you can only attack when you're close to something that is attackable. Like
Right.
you said, you can lock onto it. It
Mhm.
locks on. The lock on works.
Right.
And then, yeah, like you said, you can press left and right to choose select a skill and push another button. In my case, I pushed the circle button
Right.
to use whatever
do a
skill that is. And then you can press up and down to choose an item and press another button. In my case, I think it was square to use an item.
Right.
And then there's a
Yeah.
menu button. And then I used L and R for rotating the camera because
Yep.
using the analog stick, the right analog stick, it has it in the opposite way that I wanted to move when I move it. So I could correct it not on the analog stick, but you can correct it with the L and R buttons or whatever. So I did that.
Yeah.
And then of course there's like the hold. I hold R2 to move the mouse with the
Oh, okay.
analog
I
stick, and
could
that
have
worked really well.
remapped it. Yeah,
Mm.
I could. I was thinking of remapping it to do the same, hold the trigger, but I left it at by default. It makes it the start button, so
Mm.
which is right next to on the Xbox.
Square
It's the X button,
or the
which would
X
be
button, yeah.
square on a Sony controller, and that is you can kind of have your thumb on both. So it kind of makes sense. It's not ideal. I could have remapped that, so that's partly on me.
Yeah.
But the confirm button in this game is the square or X button,
Mm.
which I didn't understand until I was like, oh, maybe this is why.
Oh, you mean both of them are confirmed, and that's what you didn't understand?
Well, no, like normally in most Japanese games,
The circle button,
circle or X.
but it's square or
Some
X.
square in this game, and then X backs out sometimes. It was just kind of very different from the way I was used to it.
I had it set up where I always just pushed, like the confirm button was always X for me, and the circle button was always cancel. But it's kind of weird. The circle button is also the button to talk to people.
Yeah,
So
there was some weird. Maybe it sounds like your controls were laid out slightly differently, probably because you were using what exact controller were you using?
PlayStation 4 controller.
So yes, okay. I was using an Xbox Elite controller, and I don't know if that does something different to the mapping, because something else to know about this port is that when you launch it, you can open up a config launcher, and then it says, okay, what do you want to remap? And it's just like button 1, button 2, button 3.
Yep.
Like, I don't, and these are, and there's no way to troubleshoot it. So we found a forum thread on Steam that says what's what, and I don't know if it lines up differently on a PS4 controller than it does.
Well, that one in the forum, I believe, was a guy saying these are the buttons that I figured out specifically for the DualShock 4 controllers. So
okay, so it was different on my end, probably.
Yeah. So if you can just follow that and get a solid button setup, seriously, I had no problems controlling with the game. Even holding R2 to move the cursor and stuff was all pretty effortless for me once I got used to. Circle being both the interact button and the cancel button was kind of weird.
Yeah.
But once I got over that, it was no problem.
Yeah. The menuing is really the biggest quirk here. All the other systems are pretty rock solid. Like I wouldn't have any quirky complaints about this game outside of just the
control,
the PC port nature of the menus.
Indeed.
And then the launcher being kind of unintuitive. But beyond that, once you know what you're doing, so system-wise, you have a skill point system for these skills that you can use. You can't just use them indefinitely. So you start out with a stab, and that stab skill knocks enemies down. So it's super useful. They get stunned or knocked down, and you use up some skill points. And it's like a per day, to use D&D terms. So when you go to rest,
right,
at a save point, you refresh all of those skill points. There are rare items that you can get that will regenerate those points, but they're pretty infrequent.
Yeah,
that's not going to be how you get your points back. It's mostly going to be by going back to town and saving and resting.
You're talking about the magic potion, which I can read right now. A medicine that enlightens the mind, instantly recovering SP. Such a rare item. It can't be bought at the shop in town.
Yes, exactly. Even say that it's rare in the game, so I super didn't use any of those.
Yep. Yeah, I didn't use any either. I did the stupid cheesy thing that I usually do in games, and I went full physical and almost entirely passive skills too.
Okay, yeah. So there's a difference. In skills, you have active skills that do an attack or whatever.
Yeah.
And you have passive skills that you have to equip, even though they say they're passive. You still have to put them up on that 1 through 4 skill belt.
Right.
And then it becomes active, whatever that skill is. And they could range from do more strength damage or, deal more critical hit damage, or there's a whole range of them.
The first one you get from the dagger you get from the dagger, I believe, is the plunder skill, which just lets you.
I had that one on all the time.
Me too. Never took it off until the end
Never
of the
took
game.
that one off.
Yeah.
Nope. That one gives you more money.
Yeah, I don't know how much more because I didn't test it, but in the description it said dramatically more or drastically more. So I was like, okay, I want that.
Yeah, I want drastically more money. Thank you. So yeah, that one definitely had a permanent home on my skill belt unless there was something going on, like a really tough boss fight where I, for some reason, needed to
put another skill
on there for some reason. So the skills, let's talk a little bit about the skills. You get skills from weapons.
That's right.
Every weapon has a skill on it. And the more you use that weapon, you level up the weapon and the proficiency of that weapon. And it can go from 0 up to 200% proficiency.
Right. But once you get to 100%, go ahead.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, once you get to 100%, you get the skill that that weapon had learned permanently by your character, and then you can change the weapon but still use that skill, where if you haven't got up to 100% yet, the skill will disappear. And then the usefulness of going up from 100 to 200% is just your attack power with that particular sword increases. I don't remember what the max amount that it increases is. It's some percentage, maybe 30% or something like that, maybe.
It's pretty decent because I noticed that weapons that were at 200% but weaker generally than more later game weapons were doing like a decent chunk more damage than a weapon I never used.
So it's worth getting the new weapons up to the 200% then.
Right. And it's fairly easy to do because there's another skill that you can get pretty early on. Or not a skill. Sorry, this is a whole different system of the game. Right.
Yeah.
So there's another system in the game entirely called Guardians. And these are things that you will find in chests. These are cards.
Yeah.
And you go to a specific NPC in the town, and you basically equip this Guardian, and they give you a permanent, all the time,
passive effect.
Yeah. One of them being increased weapon proficiency gain. There's another one for general character experience because you do level up in this game the way you might expect.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of other ones that are of varying usefulness in situations. The one for weapon proficiency, I had that guy on pretty much most of the game.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I used him for a long while as well.
Right.
I ended up maxing out a lot of them, actually, not just a few, but like 6 or so of them even.
Oh, really? So, right, you can also level up those Guardians as you do combat with the Guardian equipped. They can level up, and they all have different level caps. And I didn't actually look into the exact benefit of it, but I just assume it means they do their job better.
That's exactly what it does. So, for example, when you have Sylphid equipped, let me see, I could do it right now, actually. Yes. Her max level is she can get up to is level 10. And the cool thing about, I suppose is a cool thing, a lot of games have a system like this where even if you go back and kill a bunch of little, like, one experienced enemies, it's still worth it in games like this or in FF12, because in FF12, no matter how strong the enemy, you usually only get 1 license point for each enemy. And the same thing in this game, your Guardians only go up 1 point, like experience point, for any enemy you kill. So if you want to hurry up and just level up a Guardian, you can take a trip through one of the earlier dungeons and one-shot everyone in seconds and really quickly level up a Guardian if you want. But anyway, so yeah, the first one that you get by default, Sylphid, her max level is level 10, and she increases your HP, and I believe this is an increase of like, do the math, from 2,500 to 3,600. What's that about, like 30%?
Sounds right.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. But when you first get her, she's only giving you like, I don't know, 5% or 3% or something like that, right? And so that's how that goes. Whoops. Yeah.
I got her maxed out pretty early on because you get her. She's the first one you get.
Right. So you just have her. Yeah. Yeah, I kept her for a long time too. I have, because I have the Guardian menu open here now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 12 total Guardians, assuming every single one of these spaces has a Guardian, and I bet they do. I missed 3, so I only got 9 of them. Do you know how many of them you got?
I definitely missed at least, I think probably exactly 3. I thought I was going to get them all.
Me too.
I know I missed some weapons because I had some weapon skill slots that I did not
Yeah, I have a
get.
few
And
left.
I think I'll get into, we could definitely get into why that is, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Okay,
But
so we should get back to the sword skills thing we were talking about first, right?
yeah, so it's interesting with the proficiency on the weapons. The opposite is true of the way that you level those up more quickly. If you're looking to grind out a weapon, instead of killing a lot of enemies quickly, you should fight
Harder
tanky
ones.
enemies because every time you use the weapon is when it gains proficiency points.
Oh, is that how often? Like if you hit an enemy but they don't die, you get a point?
It's like every use case. Yeah, you can
Okay.
get them off of breaking like blocks.
Barrels and stuff. Yeah, I did notice
Yeah.
that, but I thought it's because they're actually getting broken. I didn't think of it as just using
I'm
it. Okay.
pretty sure it's just so if you are at a stage in the game where you can safely fight tanky enemies that are maybe not quite at the level of, you'll gain proficiency pretty quickly. And there's a guardian, like I said, that will boost that gain.
The proficiency.
And within minutes, like 2 minutes, you'll
Right.
you'll max it out.
I know, yeah. So that is the Guardian Durandal. I also use that. And one thing you could do if you don't like know what enemy you can get, like in one of the earliest dungeons, the Eternal Maze, like one of the first rooms is a room filled with boxes, and if you have Durandal on, like you don't even need enemies anymore. You can just go in and out of that room and just destroy all the boxes. And yeah, like you said, 2 minutes, maxed out weapon.
Pretty much, or at the minimum, you'll get the skill, which is what I always kind of did. If I wasn't
Same here.
planning to use the weapon, I would get its skill and then just dump it.
Exactly the same thing that I did.
Did you save your weapons?
No, I sold them all back and just kept the
Okay, for
strongest
some
ones.
reason, I saved them all.
Okay, I wanted
I
the
don't know
money,
why.
man.
I know, I should have done it because so money is kind of a tight resource in this game, and it is they do some clever things with it to kind of keep it in demand, keep your money flow in an interesting spot. So one of the things about this game is it is definitely a dungeon crawler.
Oh yeah.
So you're not really going through. There's no overworld.
No.
You're going from corridor to corridor. Everywhere is basically a dungeon.
Yep.
And the other key component of most of these locations is that they all have doors. And if there is a door, it is locked.
Yep.
If
Nearly
it is
every
locked-
door. Yeah.
If it is locked, you need a key. And in order to get keys, you have 2 options. You can get a bone carving knife.
Yes.
Did you get that?
I got
Okay.
that. Didn't use it much, just like a couple times, and then
I
I
used it a
decided.
few times as well. There's a better bone carving knife that does the job even better.
Oh, I wonder if that. I didn't buy that because I thought it was a repeat of the first one.
No, it
Oh,
makes
damn.
2 keys out of 1 bone, I think.
That's pretty cool, but I think I still
Pretty
prefer
cool,
buying
but I
them.
didn't. Yeah, I think because so the way that works is there is a vendor in the one town in
Yep.
this game. There's one town.
Yeah, it's
And
like
there's a
Diablo,
vendor
guys.
there.
Think of this
It's
game as
true-
Diablo
correct.
almost.
Very accurate. And there is a vendor in there who sells you potions and spell books, which are like skills, by the way. We'll get into that. And he also sells you keys. And the more keys you buy, they start out at 20 gold. They will go up to a maximum of 500 gold. If you never
That's
take
insane.
the price. Yeah, it's really crazy. So if you never let the price go down, so how do you do that? Well, some enemies drop bones. And if you sell him a bone for 1 gold, the price of keys will go down by kind of a lot, like a good chunk.
In my case, it always went back down to the minimum amount of 20 gold.
Oh, no, you must have been buying only a few keys before you sold him a bone.
I guess so. So I figured out the way to use the bones, because what I figured is the more, if I just sell them more and more bones, the keys will stay cheap like for a long time. It actually doesn't work like that though.
No.
Yeah, so I was wasting them for a while actually.
Shoot. That sucks.
Yeah, which, well, I mean, it was fine. I didn't know that didn't even get past 40 gold for the price. So I seriously don't know how you get up to 500. That's insane. But
Good. Yeah.
but yeah, the way it goes is you sell them a bone. At least in my case, it went all the way back to the initial price of just 20 gold, and you can buy, I think, 5 keys. That's how many I bought. 5 keys, and then if you sell them a bone, another bone after that, it'll make the price go all the way back down to the original price again.
Yeah.
And so that's what I was doing partway through, and that got me up to like 70 keys in no time.
Well,
actually.
yeah. Eventually, you do make more than enough money for this mechanic to
not
not
really matter.
be an issue.
Yeah.
You can kind of buy your way through it to a degree. But really, your determining factor is bones. And you're not always going to get them. Not every enemy drops them. You have to either know where to go or just be good enough with your money to where you're not I don't know, buying a lot of keys you don't need or something. But there's a finite number of keys that you need, and they're all one use only.
Yeah.
The keys are and the doors are, so you never have to open a door multiple times.
Yeah, and I don't remember. I didn't count obviously the number of doors in the game, but I think I'd say there were about 100 or so key doors.
More than that.
You think more?
I think there's more than that. There was fucking doors every other minute. It was.
I guess so.
It was like a comical number of doors. I did run out of keys at one point because I was getting lazy. I just wasn't keeping up with it, and it didn't occur to me how many damn doors there are. It was like hallway door, hallway, little staircase door. Like, God damn! All right, I had to go back to town. Right, I referenced really quickly while we're touching on systems here the magic. Magic is basically just another skill. You put it up on the skill belt, and you do magic with it.
Yeah,
and these are like elemental attacks, like fire, ice, etc.
Yeah, the difference here is you don't learn those from weapons, though. You learn them from spell books, which you can buy or find.
You can buy or find. You don't have to worry about proficiency or whatever. And there are better, stronger versions of magic spells. I think I didn't find most. There were quite a few magic spells I did not get.
I think I found all of them. I'm sitting here. I mean, I think the way it goes.
Is the whole grid filled in?
No, it's just the top 2 rows. There's no way all these other 3 rows have spells, right?
That's kind of what I was assuming.
I don't think so.
I guess not. I guess not. Yeah.
I mean, one of them I would have found would have been down there if there were going to be some down there. I would like to.
Okay, then I probably may have either gotten all or missed only 1 or 2.
Yeah. So in that case, I only see 12 spells here.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's lightning spells, fire spells, ice spells, and then the first 3 I guess are just like kind of the miscellaneous spells. There's needle, which is just a magic blade, rock, which is a rock, and death, which is death.
Hey, it keeps it simple.
Yeah.
Let's see. Mechanics wise, I think we kind of touched on all of like the combat major. I mean, there are some systems under the hood with it where your position to an enemy is important.
Yeah.
So
in
with
this
that
game,
first skill that you get, where you knock an enemy down, you can then use that opportunity to get behind them and attack them from their opposite facing, and you'll do a crit essentially. And some enemies, like blobs, it's not always apparent what way they're facing. They don't have a face. There's a little marker on the icon that goes around them with an arrow pointing in the direction that is in front of them. So that gives you the indication there.
Yeah. So I wonder if that counts as a crit specifically, because
you might be right. I think it's a backstab specifically.
Yeah, I think you get back damage probably separately from crit damage, because
you're right.
You can crit from the front sometimes, like you'll occasionally do a double power or so attack, and it'll even make a cooler sound like shocking.
Yes.
And same thing with from the back. And so yeah, one of the skills that I kept on for like basically the entire game was the skill. Hold on, I'll find the name of it even. Let's see. Shield Mastery Intercept. No, Sneak Attack. Deals even greater damage when attacking an enemy from behind. And I did kind of the opposite thing as you did. I didn't knock them down and then run to the other side. I just ran up close to them to bait out an attack from them, and then ran to the backside and then hit them. And I did that for the whole game. I didn't even bother with magic. Didn't bother with any skills. I checked out a few of them. I was like, yeah, okay, that's cool, but whatever. I just like, this game. It's kind of got a similar stat balancing to same as East games, where like one level up can make you way more okay than you were. Especially defense wise, it's ridiculous. Like you can get to the point, especially early game. It doesn't take very many level ups in an area where you were dying. Like seriously, 2 more level ups could just take you to just taking only 1 damage per hit. Like it's that much.
Speaking of level ups, the way you level up in this game is also worth discussing here. It's not the normal way where you just get some points attributed to you automatically. It's sort of a Demon Souls system where you get points that you can then allocate into different categories. All of the points that you were leveling up with, you choose where they go. You get 6 every time. And not only is that important for leveling up and becoming stronger, these points are also the break points for allowing you to equip armor and weapons that require a baseline of whatever the point is.
Yeah, just like in Dark Souls, the equipment has stat requirements. So yeah, you could be at a point where you've got enough money to buy the next thing, but the next thing, let's say the next weapon you want, it has like 2 more reflex is one of the stats in this game. It requires 2 more reflex than you have. If you happen to have gone up a level and have the points ready, you can just put 2 more points into reflex, no problem. But if you've used up all your points, one thing you could do is go back to the temple lady, and she will let you remove any points that you've added on your most recent level. But if that's still not enough points to do what you want to do with like equipment and stuff, you can go in there and have them level you down. And to go back up to the next level only requires half the experience that you took the first time. So at least you get that. Early game, I did it a couple times, and it didn't take too long to get back that 1 level up that you lost. You do have to do it in a bit weakened state, though. But at the end game, takes forever, even at half experience, because somebody in that one of those freaking like necromancer dudes in the final dungeon, I don't know what attack he did on me, but seriously said level down on me, and I was like, no way. I freaked out.
Bullshit. That bullshit ass
that
attack.
Sucked. Yeah, so I had to go back up that level all over again, but at least it did the same thing where you only have to do half. But even at half, it took a long time. So
yeah. So the leveling up in this game is definitely something you have to pay attention to, because you're probably going to at least be interested in the skills on the new weapons. Also, the weapons do a lot more damage, and the armor is, in my experience, pretty necessary. I find it difficult to avoid taking damage in this game. It's definitely an RPG in that sense, compared to, as opposed to an action game where you can sort of skillfully dodge attacks. You're going to take a lot of damage to the face in this game.
So one thing you do have to worry about is your strength stat, or at least the power of your weapon, because it is possible to find enemies where you only deal, I don't think you can deal 0 damage to anyone, but you can deal only 1 damage to enemies pretty easily if you haven't been improving your weapon or your strength. So I don't know how much you have to worry about that, but I mean,
in my experience, if you're ever at a point where suddenly you're doing 1 damage, there's probably some profound elemental weakness that the enemy has.
Oh,
that you can exploit. Yeah, if you use the magic. So I didn't really use magic either a lot. Some of the magic is really stupidly strong.
Yeah.
And can be just really effective at, if you're maybe trying to push through the game quickly, it can be effective at stunning enemies and getting them out of your way, or opening them up to backstabs. There's like a screen-wide flash
explosion
freeze
thing. Yeah.
that will freeze all enemies, and you can run behind them and then backstab them and kill just a whole bunch of them, because you really do significantly more damage.
Right. How long did they stay frozen?
enough to get one or two.
To get
Like
two.
three
Okay.
hits on one guy and then a hit on another one, But the thing is, you can just spam it.
Right,
Just
but
keep
you'll
doing
run
it.
out of SP. But yeah.
You'll run out eventually, but it's enough to grind to the point where you will be one hitting them from behind. And then you're really going to wipe out whole rooms. I mean, at that point, toward the end, like you were saying, the leveling requirements do get significant. So
Yeah.
that
So
drops off eventually.
the ignition spell is the one where it's just like a big ass explosion.
Yeah.
You could take out easily like everyone around you, no problem if they're close to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're trying to equip the best armor and the best weapons, you're probably not narrow casting your points into one thing. So that
Nope.
means you're probably keeping like a strong magic stat, which I probably wouldn't have done normally because you need it in order to wear the
Some
thing,
of the
whatever
things.
it is.
Yeah.
So like the rock drop, whatever it's called, drops a giant fucking rock on guys. It's exactly what it does, and it just does a shit ton of damage.
It does do a shit ton of damage. Cool. Yeah, I bought, as far as things you can buy, I was able to buy every single piece of armor in the game, and weapon. And so yeah, the strongest one that I have equipped, it requires 20 of every stat except Constitution, which requires 25. And that will actually, I'm looking at these now, that will let you equip any of the other helmets and any of the other shields as well, if you have that stat set up. But then in the case of weapons, you also need to worry about your strength stat a lot more.
Yeah.
For example, like it's pretty genius. The legendary sword that you're searching for in the game, the Dragon Slayer, it has the stat requirements are the 5, yeah, the initial level
Yeah.
that you start with, the default stats. But for example, I have this sword that I found in the final dungeon called the Vorpal Blade, which it only requires 15 of all the other stats, but then it requires 45 strength, and I only have 40. So I need one more level up if I want to equip that, which I would like to. It's a bummer though. You have to use the Dragon Slayer for the final boss.
Yeah, it does suck, and even when you get that thing up to 200%, it's not
that
your
strong.
best
I mean,
yeah,
it's set up like a Zelda boss, that one, because you have to wait for them to open up their weak point, and then you run up and use the Dragon Slayer ability on it as well, and it's going to take like exactly 3 or something.
Yeah, yes, correct. That sword comes with a special ability that just does like a big slow overhead swing, which is useful only on the final boss.
Right, exactly. and the sword itself, it becomes surprisingly. I thought that would be like an insane sword, but it's got the name. The name Dragon Slayer. You're kind of taking a chance by using that because it's such a well-known phrase, Dragon Slayer. There was like an old, was it a movie or was it just a game, the Dragon Slayer game, that that anime game? You know what are those called? Cinematic adventure games?
Not sure.
Oh, you don't know?
Talking, I think I know what you're talking about. It's not anime.
It's not anime. I mean, it's animation. Sorry.
Animated.
It's like fully animated, like it's a movie almost.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Dragon something. I know exactly.
It's Dragon
what you're
Slayer.
talking about. Yeah.
It's called Dragon Slayer.
Is it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
then
yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
So they hit like there's that's been around and that was a little bit famous, and then I don't know, just the phrase Dragon Slayer has been around forever. It's gotta be a big ass deal. And then the story of this game, just a quick little introduction to it before we go into it deeply, is that you need the Dragon Slayer if you're going to live. You're like on life support right now with magic. But
what a crazy way to get the story off the ground.
I know, right? Yeah. But if you find the Dragon Slayer, that will cure you permanently and you can just live normal again. And you get it, and it's like, well, that's awesome. But dude, the sword at the shop is stronger than the freaking Dragon Slayer. That sucks.
Yeah. It's one of those RPG conundrums where you're the savior of the whole known universe, but people are still charging you money to, buy a sword that's stronger than the legendary sword of myth. It's like, what's going on here?
Yeah, and also, one thing you could say is a problem with this game is if you want to go I watched a speed run, and they were like explaining to this to me.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they went full magic run.
Oh, okay.
But you
I can see
can't.
that.
Yeah, but you can't go full magic run, full mage build, uh, all the way to the end of the game, like permanently. For example, of course, but as we said, you have to use the Dragon Slayer on the
Uh-huh.
final boss. So there's that. But also, I haven't watched the very end. I don't know what they're gonna do with all those bad stats. I guess it's gonna respec, I guess. But
Mhm.
another thing is there are like several areas where just enemies don't take magic damage, including a
Right.
boss. And so then what do? You have to go become physical, even if you don't want to.
I
So
guess
that kind of
so.
sucks for people who want to go full mage. I wanted to go full physical,
Physical.
and that worked
Yeah.
completely fine all the way to the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah, it's definitely a button mash type of game. You're gonna kind of sit there, I don't know, maybe
Mm.
more closer to the end when you've got better weapons or whatever, and you're just gonna be an enemy facing you and you facing an enemy, just kind of whacking away at each other. I mean, that's how a scenario I found myself in
Yeah,
when
I
the
did too.
enemies weren't killing me. Like I could definitely take hits because the stats are, I'm leveled up enough,
Yeah.
and it's just like a big mash fest.
And you've
as you're
got 10
grinding
heal
through.
potions anyway.
Yes. So that's another thing. You kind of have to ration out your heals because, as you run out of supplies, whether it's SP or keys or, potions or whatever, you'll have to warp back to town. And like we said, there's this one town that just mysteriously keeps finding connections into deeper and deeper parts of the world.
Yeah, into Xanadu.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, into the rest of Xanadu. Like, literally at one point, they're like, we were digging a new storage area and we found a dungeon. Whoa!
Exactly. Yeah. Right here.
Right over here. And you can just go into it, and like 2 feet next to it, there's like a wooden wall blocking another dungeon.
Right.
And it's kind of silly.
And the town has 5 exits, I think.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all 5 of them lead directly into some dungeon that you need to go through.
Yep. Correct. And there's there's a couple other places further in. There's a couple other. There's a decent amount of environmental variety on these locations, but there is not. Again, this is kind of a budget title. There is not a strong enemy variety. There's like 4 or 5.
I think it's more than that, but
10, maybe like 10.
yeah, maybe 10, yeah. Let's see. There's
10 enemies. They're reused a lot, though.
They do, right. There are slimes, there are lizard, they're like just like dragon type lizards, but then there's also
Yeah, there's the
bipedal lizard men.
Yeah, bigger lizard guys.
Yeah.
There's flying dragons of
Yeah.
a couple different kinds, and there's
There's some bats and some skeletons.
some bats and skeletons, right?
And some troll thing, some like orc looking or goblin looking dudes.
Mummies, zombies.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I guess they're really using a similar, like they're just using the same model and just altering it. Like I think the zombies, and then later when you meet mummies, I think they just changed, like they just put the wrapping on it, and it looks basically
something like that. And they definitely did outright palette swaps, which is fine. Whatever.
Yeah, I'm fine with those.
I didn't mind. It's definitely a shorter paced game. You do churn through this game quite quickly, even if you're not trying to.
My ending time was 16 and a half hours.
Right. My Steam time was 22 hours. My save file only said 8 hours.
That is so weird. So did you, every time you die, and we'll go ahead and tell you guys the mechanic now, when you die, you have the choice to just continue but lose 50% of your gold, just your gold, nothing else. So exactly the same thing as what game? Dragon Warrior, right?
Right.
But also, or you could just go back to the last save point. What did you usually choose?
It depended on the context. If it was a recent save, I would definitely go back to the save point because I needed the gold. Most of the time, I don't know. I may have done it pretty close to half and half. Probably more often than you did, I guess, right? You took the gold hit more often, right?
I took the gold almost all the time because I figured it's worth it to go ahead and keep all the experience and items I gained. Yeah.
Right. And you could deposit your money, right?
I did know that, but
I didn't do it either.
I did a couple times. I was like, it's okay if I lose half of it. I'll get it back later. And then eventually I bought everything.
You get money. Yeah, exactly. So I found it easy to get money in this game, and it's also the game is fast and breezy enough. It's kind of fun to grind. So
Totally. Yeah.
it's not like a chore, really.
Yeah, and that's how it was when I played. I've only played two East games, East 3 and East 6. And East 3 is I mean, you grind quickly, it does go quick enough, but it's not it's not as good as this game at all. Because like it has way more kicking music and stuff, which is cool, but like that game, man, the enemies do not react to your hits at all.
True.
Like East 3 I'm
I've
talking about
seen-
here. Yeah. Freaking bats or, club dudes using clubs are approaching you. You smack them, they just like flash white for a second while they keep running right on into you. So
Yeah, I've seen videos of these games, and that's always something that kind of stuck out to me. It's just like they're not
right.
doing anything.
But in this game, I'd say they got the balance and the fact that enemies actually get they react to your attacks a little bit, especially when you get the sound design is also really sweet. When you get behind them and you get the back damage, the sound is like yeah,
Yeah,
and it sounds
it's
really
pretty effective.
satisfying, I must say.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty cool. So yeah, your money starts to come in pretty reasonably because if you put that plunder ability on, you're going to collect it, and the enemies are just kind of all over the place.
I wonder if it's double. I never checked. Like I never
did either.
looked it up or tested or anything. But like I knew I always wanted drastically more money, so I just kept it on there.
Yeah, and there are other interesting passive skills that are, I don't know, like.
Here, I'll go through the list. We got so increase the damage of critical hits, which, like we talked about before, I'm not sure that may be separate from back damage. I think it is, because if it's gonna, because you have it must be different because the sneak attack is a separate, also a skill, which is the behind the enemy damage is increased, which is awesome. So yeah, this is that. But then there's also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So one skill to raise each of the 5 character parameters by 3 points. So I put some in mind because I tend to take a lot of magic damage because all this armor. I don't think it says defense 255 for my battle suit. I think when it says defense, seriously only means physical defense. I think.
Could be.
Because I seem to take a lot of magic damage. So I put on the plus 3 points to mind, which isn't a lot, but it helps. And then, drastically more gold, more damage from back attacks. We got an ability to counterattack enemies, which I didn't use. But I tried it once to see what it was like. And, he blocks a hit and then attacks. But I'm not in a position to be waiting for enemies to attack me and take the hit. I'm like baiting them, moving to the side to go behind them, and then hitting them from back there. So, shield mastery. I'll bet if you put both of these up together, maybe you could actually block lots of hits. Maybe I'd try that actually.
Maybe.
One-handed lets you one-hand a two-handed weapon. That's kind of cool.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. And a chance to live when you take a mortal blow with just a tiny bit of HP remaining. Insight, which lets you see the enemy's stats when you get up close to them.
I used that for like a minute, but the readout on those stats is so tiny, and you don't have like time to read it.
You don't have time, exactly. So I didn't use it much either. I did find out though that like in this one area where there are, what is it? I think there's fire bats and ice lizards or something. That the ice lizards are weak to fire, but the fire bats, they're not actually strong against fire. They're just neutral to fire. So it's worth it to go. So I learned that it's actually worth it to put on the fire sword ability in this area, thanks to that. But usually I didn't get much use out of it.
Enemies will absorb damage if they're like
absorb it too.
To it. Yeah, right. So that's a factor.
So that's the thing too, yeah. Berserk, which lets you increase attack at the cost of defense. I don't see it anywhere here, but there should be an ability that lets me increase my defense at the cost of attack. I don't see it here though. And then I got a couple great ones though at the end, yo. Did you get rapid fire, which increases your attack speed?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and did you get Veda's gift, which increases your movement speed?
Yep, that
Those were
one was.
sweet.
Those were hard to take off on the occasion where I needed to do so.
Oh, for real? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's like I didn't get the ice sword ability, but there's a thunder sword and a fire sword ability where you can just like
Right.
seriously walk around and your
You can
sword is
put
on
both
fire the
on.
whole time. What'd you say?
You can put both on.
Oh, whoa! I never thought of that. What
Yeah, you
happens
could. I
then?
did that once. And you just get a fire and lightning damage.
So if they're weak to fire and strong against lightning, does it just do neutral damage then?
I don't know
Yeah.
enough. I didn't do it too often because I usually didn't have enough slots to play with. I liked using a combination of some sort of stunning ice magic to then get behind because you can hit multiple enemies at a time, not just one. So if they're close enough and you
Right.
have a weapon that has like enough of an arc to it,
Mm.
and you get behind them when they're frozen, you can just wipe out like 2, 3 dudes at a time, and it's pretty effective.
Nice. So yeah, those are all the skills. I'm missing 4 here, but um,
Yeah, I don't know. I read that there is like a secret dungeon that I don't know about.
hmm.
I'm not sure where it is. I know there's a secret dungeon related guardian that makes your level ups more effective. So if you
What?
level down all the way and then use this guardian, I think you get more skill points every level up.
Dude, that's crazy. I
Yeah.
wonder if you're supposed to find that and go to that dungeon before the final dungeon or
I don't
after.
think you can. I think it's a post game only.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think so. I'm not sure. Maybe, but I know there is a secret dungeon.
I kind
So
of want to
maybe I'm
find
wrong.
that. The level cap in this game is 30, but I beat the game at level 19.
Yeah, I don't remember what my level was,
Mm.
but
And it's
yeah,
cool
it's
every
low.
yeah, and it's cool every level in this game has a title, a class name,
Oh
and at
yeah,
level 19, I'm a saint.
yeah, right. That's right. I also appreciate, and it kind of impressed me, is that all your armor has different appearances.
Yeah, they did that. Yeah. That was
Yeah, it's
cool of
pretty
them.
cool. Like I was not expecting that to happen. So when you put on a new set of like bigger plate armor, you get a bigger looking suit of armor on your character model. It's kind of
Yeah.
cool.
And there's the horned helmet, which makes you look like
Yep.
the freaking kid from Eco.
Yep. There's a lot of cool helmets too.
But
So
the
that's
graphics
nice.
aren't really like good enough, like the 3D graphics anyway, aren't really good enough for
No.
me to care, to be honest.
I mean, I have a soft spot for this kind of appearance in graphics just because I guess I liked this era in gaming. But, they're not, it's not like beautiful. It's just old.
Yeah.
um, so let's talk a little bit I think we'll leave the story
For
to
last.
the end.
Okay.
So let's talk about the boss fights. So as you're kind of dungeon crawling around, opening doors with keys. Well, okay, before we get to the bosses, one thing that you'll do and probably spend some amount of time on, other than combat and unlocking doors
Ah.
in these things, are the block puzzles.
Oh, dude. I There's a puzzle that I think I figured it out entirely the wrong way, and
I
I
gave
don't.
up on one.
You gave up on one and you looked it up, you mean?
No, it's an optional one, and I just fucking gave up.
Okay. So the first one that really, really matters in my opinion, there's one. So one of the dungeons in this game is called the Eternal Maze, and that dungeon is
Yeah.
quite long. It's an underground ruin that connects to a whole bunch of other dungeons as well.
Yes.
It connects to the first forest area, Clover Forest, to the more difficult, crazy maze-like forest, Trechier
Oh
Forest or
God,
something.
that fucking place.
Right, I know. You'd have to write it all down and remember it if you want to do it well. And it also connects to Mount Eaglet and like everywhere. It connects like all the dungeons almost. And
Uh-huh.
so eventually you're going to get to a point where you have to push a couple boxes. And I'm realizing now that they set it up in a way where it's very likely that you'll figure this out, but I thought about it first before acting, and so I didn't do what they expected me to do. You cannot push the heavy stone ones yet. You can only push the normal crates, and in this game, what you can do is you can't just climb onto a crate. You need to break it, hit it once, and it will be broken down to half height, and then you
Right.
can just walk right on up it, right?
Yes.
So you do that to the first wall. There's like a stone crate, and
I
then
know exactly what you're gonna say.
okay, and then there's a wall right in front of it, and so you just push the wooden crate up. You hit it once, you walk on up it. Then the next one, get this, yo. So there's the wall, and then coming out of the wall, there's a there's like another block that you can run up, and then there's a half broken box, and then a completely intact box. And so the half broken one means half height. And so I'm looking at it and I'm thinking like, okay, I can walk onto this thing from like the second halfway broken one.
Uh-huh.
And then what do I do? Because the step up over the wall is one whole crate's height.
Right.
So this is what I did to get past that. I didn't look this up, but I was stuck here for a while thinking about it. And now I know what the intended solution is. But what I did was, in this game, when you run off of something, you automatically do a little jump. And so what I did was I ran diagonally off of the block, but towards the wall. And I managed to jump up over the wall by doing that. And I was certain after I was done, dude, there's no way that could be the freaking solution. Later, I found out the solution. How about you? Do you know where I'm talking about?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I know exactly. This is in the Endless Maze, right?
Yes, in the Eternal Maze.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like one of the first block puzzles that you kind of come to that's like real.
Exactly.
Simple,
that you have to get past, right?
Yeah. You have to get past. And what they don't tell you, this is the game's fault. They don't tell you that you can push a block up a half block high.
Yes, that's what it was. Oh my god.
They never tell you this. And I don't know how I figured it out. I must have just pressed the wrong way one time and then gone, oh fuck, if I knew that, like I actively was like, oh,
yeah,
I didn't know you could do that.
So they set it up where it's like you're primed to figure it out, but I stopped.
Yes,
so because the way it is those they're stuck inside of a little like channel, like a little kind of lowered.
You can only move them within a certain thing, and the thing is, you can't move a half high block. Once you break a block down to half height,
you can't move
stationary.
It anymore. Right.
And you can leave and re-enter the room to reset the block puzzle back to neutral, but you commit to the location of the half high block, and that's kind of. There's one other area where it gets the added layer to the block puzzle, but this is kind of the overall mechanic of the block puzzles. You have a whole height block that you can't go up, but you can move. And you have half height blocks that you can go up, but you can't move.
Right.
And you can break a block down to half height, or you can break it entirely and remove it, but you can't build it back up, obviously. So you're stuck in that sort of loop where you got to move. And the thing they don't tell you is not only can you go up a half high block, but you can push a block up a half high block.
Because the reason you would expect that it makes sense that you can go up the half height block is that you have legs and you're walking. And you have arms too, for that matter. But like, you're seriously, if you push a block up against another block, they're stuck.
Yeah.
And so there's no reason you should be able to just push a crate up a half height crate. Because just if you think about it in real life, audience, for you guys, like literally just take any two like somewhat large boxes, okay? Push them up against each other, okay? Chop one of them perfectly in half across the top. Can you push the bigger one on top of it? No. But in this game, it like slides right on up there. And I never knew that because I didn't try to push that first block up the half one. So I got past that by doing that. And then later when I had to do it again, I was like, how do I get past this? Like I couldn't figure out the next puzzle that I got into later on.
And you can choose a couple of the other puzzles down the line with that jumping thing that you did. So like you were saying, it works like 3D Zelda does, where you can jump off of a cliff just by walking off of it, as long as you walk kind of quickly
fast
enough. You can walk off and just fall flat down, but you can jump off too with some decent distance, and you can definitely subvert the intended mechanic of a puzzle doing that.
A couple places.
At least a few ways, a couple places.
Yeah.
There is one other thing we skipped over, is that not only are there items that you use disposably, but there are equipable items that give you special abilities. One of them being what we referenced, the ability to push heavy blocks. So
That's
there's
right.
like a gauntlet that you put on your item belt
Hmm.
where you would normally put potions and things. And it's there and it doesn't get used up. And as long as it's there, you don't have to select it or anything, but as long as it's there, you gain the ability to push heavy blocks.
That's
There's
right.
a few other items. One of them gives you the ability to like hover in the air when you walk, jump off of a platform. Other one highlights invisible objects.
Hmm. One lets you
What's another
breathe
one?
underwater.
Breathe underwater.
And
And
then
is
you
that
get a
it?
whole bunch of, well, then you get like 5 or 6 of these armlets that all add effects to your sword slashes. So like one that will poison enemies upon sword
Oh, right.
slashes
Yeah,
and
that's right.
paralyze. But the thing is, most enemies die quick enough
Yeah.
that you don't really need it. I don't know if it works on any bosses because that's the only time I would really want
I
that.
think it does. I think the poison bangle works on some, but again, like to your point, you're doing way more direct damage than you are damage over time, and it's like such a pathetic number of points per tick or
Per
whatever.
tick, per
It's
poison
not worth
damage.
it. It's
Yeah.
not worth an item slot. Just put another potion on there. Like you need to potion up a lot in this game, or at least I did.
I put one potion up there, yeah. Especially in the latter half. In the beginning, I didn't even bother with healing. I just kept going back and
Yeah,
then.
me neither. It was easy enough. Potions are expensive. The ones
Yeah.
that heal enough, because you start taking a lot of damage too.
Right, you get more HP, so you need it
You
too.
get more, so you need better potions.
Yeah. So, an opinion I kind of have is that I kind of feel like they didn't really need to make us equip all of the puzzle solving items like
Yeah, it's annoying.
right, the gauntlet, and now the boots on one hand, there's lots of times where like I found me jumping off of things by accident and then hovering a problem during combat. So that one makes sense.
Oh yeah.
But like the gauntlet and the I don't even see here. Here it is. The ruby bracelet, which lets you that's the one that actually lets you push the heavy boxes. The gauntlet lets you punch through
Oh
stone
yeah, lets you
walls.
fucking punch walls open.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. Yeah, that one and the one that lets you breathe underwater, like just have them active once you've acquired them just permanently. I think would have been fine because
yeah,
it's not the same puzzle solving level as Zelda where you have to figure out what
no,
tool to use.
right.
Like it's usually pretty obvious. I mean, there's only like a few areas with water, so that's that.
Uh-huh.
The places where you can break through break through a rock wall or whatever, you can usually tell if you notice it, you've solved the puzzle, right? So
Right.
once we've noticed it, that's the puzzle.
Yeah.
Why make us go through it and re-equip
Right.
stuff and stuff, right?
I
So
guess it forces you to hold the item in your inventory, which cuts down your space on your inventory a little bit. But I don't know. I think you'd really have to not know what you're doing in this game at all for that to become a real part of the challenge.
right,
Yeah, I don't know.
I think
And to me, it just kind of speaks to the lower budget nature of it, because these are the kinds of considerations that I think come with more time and polish.
I suppose so. But overall, I feel like this is a very polished game.
It is within this aspect that it's running in. It's not. I did encounter a couple technical glitches, and that may have been due to the port of the game, maybe,
Me too, actually.
rather than the game of itself.
I had a
But
sound glitch, an amazing one, actually.
I had an amazing cutscene glitch where a character was freaking out. It was
was-
really good.
It was Theobald, right?
Was it?
Maybe.
Oh no, it happens every time then, doesn't it?
It happened to me in 2 areas. Like the second or so time that I met Theobald, that sage dude, he was just
Yeah.
spinning around in circles while the other guy, Dvorak, was talking to us. He's like
Yep.
just a couple steps to the left of him, spinning
Yes.
around in circles, and it happened
It happened
again.
to me once with him and then once with another NPC in the town while I was running around. It was really crazy.
Yeah, and it happened again with me with Theobald at like the final cutscene, like before the final boss, and
Oh,
like
that's great.
freaking, he grew up to a massive size
Yes,
too.
he got huge.
It
He was getting
hilarious.
bigger and bigger.
And he was spinning around while the princess is telling us all this important stuff.
Yeah, this really serious shit. He's just like spazzing out in 2D, 3D, getting huge.
Yeah, and also I went through the Time's Crevice, the Crevice of Time dungeon, and then I used the I think I used maybe the black onyx to get out of there or something, and the constant like plasma lightning sound effect that goes on in there was continuing on in the town as well, and I had
Oh
to
shit!
save and
Yeah.
restart to like make it disappear.
I did have one crash when I warped back to town. It just the
Oh,
game closed.
I did
And
too.
I was like, oh shit.
I did too.
But thankfully that didn't happen because that's usually when you're about to save the game. So that could be potentially very devastating.
So that happened to me. I got a full on
Oh,
crash just
oh,
one time, and it's like right before I was gonna save, just like you said, when I used the black onyx. But and so I did have to just like reload the whole game. Luckily, it has
oh, you're right. It auto
auto
save.
saves. But they only ask you one time. Do you want to
Yeah,
load the autosave? And I had a time
yeah.
where I didn't want to, and so I said no, and it never asked me again if I wanted to. So luckily, I
Right,
said yes, and I kept that. I didn't lose any progress.
right. Yeah, I forgot about. So that's a pretty good thing. It's a pretty advanced feature for a game of its time.
Hmm.
Auto save. That maybe that was only in the port. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Uh,
Maybe, yeah, I don't know if he was in the N-Gage.
yeah, right. I don't know. But let's see. So yeah, we were gonna talk about the block puzzles there. They're pretty dubious. Like aside from the communication problems, where can you push a thing up a half high block? You know, once you get over that and you realize and you know the rules of the game, they're still conceptually pretty challenging. I don't know if you thought the same.
I thought they were really well made overall, and I thought that there were a few that I had to retry, but I mean,
Really? So you had no like I must have spent an hour on one after I gave up.
oh, are you serious? So there's one where like there was one in one room in one of the final two or one of
Right.
the final dungeon or so where like if any three blocks of the same color touch each other, then they
They
disappear.
disappear.
And so
Yeah.
I kept like not realizing like it's three blocks. It took
Oh,
me a while to figure that, but once I figured that, I was like, oh, okay. So now I have to figure out this, and it took me a while to come up with the method for that. But I mean, it wasn't
mhm.
like nothing Alundra level to scare you a bit.
Okay. Oh, great. Good news.
Yeah.
Well, there was one optional block puzzle that I just gave up on, and I looked up what the reward was to see if I wanted it, and I didn't. And it was like level 2 lightning. I was like, ah, fuck that.
Yeah, I'm not playing
I'm moving
mage.
on. Yeah. So yeah, the block puzzles are kind of the other major thing that you do, other than dungeon crawling and running around and fighting, and then
But there are not
fighting.
that many of them, to be honest. Like
No, but
10
it
total,
really
maybe.
is the only other thing that you do.
It is the only other thing. Yeah, that's right. All the rest is just running
Uh,
around slashing stuff.
running around slashing stuff and then getting into big boss fights, which I thought were really good.
Same here.
Right.
So there's a couple of ways you can do it. Um, one of the ways, which happened to me in the like mid game, I'd say, is you can just run up to him and tank all the hits and slash him to death. that
Oh,
that
really?
that can happen if you're, I guess, if you're ahead on levels and equipment.
Right.
It's totally possible to do that.
Probably.
But the first really big boss that you could say that I fought was the tree boss.
Yeah, right. That was a cool one. That was a really interesting one because it even does something different with the camera, where the camera is panning around the boss in like a circle.
Yeah, if you move in a circle, it'll stay perfect. It just stays on the outside edge of the circle. And
Yeah.
it does look really cool. And I thought that what you had to do was go around and kill all the eyes in all of the roots.
I thought so too.
But I watched the freaking speed run and they just killed the main part.
Oh, boo.
So we didn't have to do that. That's kind of not cool. I think you should have to do it.
Yeah, I thought so too. That was
Yeah.
a kind of crazy fight because it's just one of those things where it's hard to just not take damage all over the place. Like everything's doing damage to you all the time. Everything's
Exactly.
spitting poison at you or whatever, and there's like things dropping from the tree all the time. So
Yeah.
you just
Like,
have to have the stats to not die to that, I guess.
yeah, totally. Yeah. I think there's a lot of I think there are several bosses with just a lot of projectiles, and I think that's how games like this I don't know, that's how they seem to go about boss fights is they put lots of
Yeah,
projectiles to mess you up.
the later boss fights I found to be more strategic and puzzly, where they did a lot of damage that was easily avoided, but you had to get the pattern down
Mm-hmm.
That lava boss in particular was, I thought, very
Ah,
pattern
yeah,
oriented,
that was a
and
good
it
one.
was
You're
really
right.
fun because the boss would go up a level and do a big like level wide wipe, and then go down a level, and you had to go up a level to avoid the attack, and
Yeah.
it was about pattern recognition because it was a really strong attack. I don't know, I had no way of standing and face tanking that guy at all.
Yeah, I didn't
Uh,
face tank him. Yeah, and that one is cool. Yeah, he starts up at the top. He drops fireballs on you from above at first, and so like you have to like run around the one of the six little circular platforms that you can run up onto. You don't run them onto them. You run around them
uh-huh.
and hope that the fireballs hit them instead of you. And then when he comes down, that's your chance to hit him a little bit. But then you got to run again because he's going to do like an attack. And then he goes into the air and the lava level raises. And so you have to walk onto one of these
Yeah,
small six platforms. And then he starts doing straightforward laser attacks at you. And you have to sidestep all of them before that part is over
right,
and he comes back down. I thought that was cool.
right. Yeah, it's very true. I thought all the bosses were, I don't know, I had like a decent enough time, hard enough time to where they felt like a big, like, oops, thank God, like I got through them. Like I found like I was wearing down all my potions and whatever, so it was pretty
Mm-hmm.
cool. The
Yeah.
spider boss, the lava boss, the tree boss, and there was a couple others.
The spider boss, did you say?
Yeah, there's like a big spider, right?
I don't even remember that one. The
There's
spider.
like there was like water on the ground.
There's
It
water
maybe
on the
didn't
ground.
wasn't exactly a spider, but it had a bunch of legs. Pretty sure it was a spider.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Which
Well,
area's
anyway,
boss was it? Do you remember which area it was in?
I don't remember the area. I think it was the mountain, top of the mountain, maybe.
Hmm. Okay.
Um, so yeah, the boss fights are pretty cool. They're not just big normal enemies that you're doing the same thing to them. You're
No, it's
engaging
different.
with new mechanics. They're thoughtfully done and cool, and they're cool looking.
Yeah.
Uh,
So what'd you think of the final
yeah.
boss?
The final boss, initially, I was like, this is bullshit until I figured out what I needed to do. So they
Hmm.
really did kind of make, or at least in my opinion, they kind of made that one a little extra hard because it's a couple different phases.
Two phases, yeah.
And yeah, and the first phase kind of makes sense as far as what you're doing once you kind of realize how to avoid the big attacks. And, I kind of puzzled together that you got to use the Dragon Slayer sword to do damage. That wasn't hard for me to
Right.
realize. But
I mean, that's in the
uh,
story, yeah.
the second
Second phase.
phase, I just didn't understand how the hell I was supposed to do any damage to that guy. And there's so many things hitting you all the time.
Exactly. So that was a little crazy. So for the audience, the first one is just you versus like a dragon, and he's just like standing and walking around. Occasionally, he goes into the sky,
Yeah,
but the way it usually goes is
pretty
he's going to
simple.
breathe fire straight forward. So you need to be out of his way, or he's going to swing his tail, and you need to be far away from him. And he also has like dark flames circling around him. So you have to wait for those to go up a bit so you don't get hit. And then you have to go
Yeah,
wail on his leg, on his foot. But it only does one damage. So I was questioning if like this is what I'm really supposed to be
yeah,
doing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But eventually he goes, "Arr," and like his
Yeah.
head,
Ah, my foot.
right, my foot, he falls down to the ground. And that's when you can go around to his head and
Give him an old bonk on the head.
yeah, just give him a slash on the head with the Dragon Slayer skill or whatever. And if you can do that
Yeah.
4 or 5 times. The cool thing
Right.
is, dude, I leveled up once. I think after my second, my second after my first try and I died. I think I leveled up once after that, and the number of hits required actually
Went
changed.
down a lot. Wow.
So
Okay,
you can
nice.
actually reduce the amount of hits required if you can, level up. Even though you can't change your sword, you can at least change. Or I didn't level up. What I did was I think I put on the plus strength skill in the menu because you can't
Mhm.
use like I don't need gold for the final battle.
Right.
And
Exactly.
yeah, and also you can't sneak attack him. You can't back attack him. So I didn't
Yeah.
need that. So I put on the plus strength ability.
Hmm.
And also there's another skill, it's an active one that gives you just like plus strength for just like a short while, like for
Oh,
like
sure.
10 seconds, really. It's not that long. And if you like put those on, you can take less hits to finish the battle. So that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. And it works
That
out
is
pretty
cool.
well considering that you're just supposed to walk up to him and
Were
do
you
one heavy
using
slash, right?
were you using the movement speed skill?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I was going to say that's really a big pro tip because this game is clearly difficulty tuned to the default running speed. If you could run faster by using that skill,
Way
it's
easier.
much easier, way
Yeah.
easier to dodge everything.
Yeah. I mean, that entire final dungeon, I use it, and I think it would have been pretty hard to get behind guys just by baiting attacks had I not had that.
Sure,
So,
sure.
yeah.
So yeah, that final boss, once I puzzled that together, I was like, oh, this is how I do. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, that's right. And then the second phase, I wanted to comment
Eyeball.
about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Dude, that second phase was crazy. So, like, yeah, like Mel said, tons of projectiles, a hell of a lot of
Everything.
fireballs. So what I did was I put
Yeah.
on the fire resist helmet.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and then
I
the
didn't do
damage
that.
it took for every fireball literally went down to half. It was from 30 to 15. So that's great.
That's good.
And then I had, of course, like I had like 10 of the medium and 10 of the large potions. So that also helped. And it's crazy. There's all these fireballs going. There are 3 skulls floating around, and they also shoot fire, so you can reduce their damage. And then there's like some occasionally the dragon breathes poison, and also there are like some dark balls of darkness floating around occasionally as well. And
Yeah.
those are like the biggest problem, or the second biggest problem. And the biggest problem is right before the dragon does its ultimate beam attack, which is the thing what you have to do is that's when you have to hit its weak point just
Where the
before it
beam
does
comes
that.
out of? Yeah.
Right where the beam comes out of on its like stomach or whatever. It's got an eye or whatever. And freaking you have to hit it and then run because like
Hit
the
it with
beam
a
still
slow
comes out.
overhand attack and then run the fuck out of the way.
Exactly, because the beam still comes out even if you hit him.
Yeah.
And when he's setting up to like he's charging up for the beam attack, it's crazy. These 2 ice lasers start freaking setting their sights on you like sniper
Charging up.
lasers, so they don't hurt you at first, but then they start when they actually fire. Dude, if you're anywhere near those freaking ice lasers, you are frozen in place and getting chain ice damages for a while, yo.
Yeah.
And
it's
if
pretty bad.
Yeah, and if you get stuck with that, you're probably getting hit by the main blast as well, and you're going to be dead unless you're hammering potions, which admittedly,
Exactly.
if you hammer the potions, it freaking heals you instantly with every button press, no animations required, so you can live through some stuff. But goddamn, those ice lasers were crazy. That was great.
It was nuts. That was a really nuts fight. I didn't realize you could hit the eye at all, or that's what you were supposed. I was waiting for like some other part of the fight to start happening. I was like, well, okay, when's it my fucking turn?
Oh, I see.
But then I realized, oh, the eye. It kind of made sense. I was like, well, when? When would it happen? He's attacking right away, but that's the window they give you.
That's the window they give you,
and get out. Yeah. So yeah, that last boss fight was cool. Boss fights in this game generally pretty cool. Let's see. Mechanics wise, I think I touched on everything except this one other comment I have is the dungeon designs are pretty straightforward. I would say there's a couple twists and turns at one forest maze where you know what the solution is, right?
No. I just sort of remembered, okay, if I go this way. What?
There was an easy way to do. So I got stumped by this as well. And I was like, I'm doing something wrong because I keep going back to this fucking middle area.
I thought you just had to remember where each area leads you.
You gotta use the little lens of truth thing.
Of course. Oh, Jesus Christ.
And then it shows a symbol that's glowing on the ground, which tells you the way to go.
That's what those symbols on the... Because even if you don't wear it, like I wear the spectacle, I think it's called. Wait, I have it right here.
Yeah.
That's right, spectacles. If you don't use the spectacles, there's like a little circular sign on the ground next to every exit. And I always looked at that thinking... Like, is that important? Like, it kind of seems like it should be important. And it never popped in my mind to use the spectacles there. Oh man, that's
I
awesome,
got
dude.
stuck for a while there as well. I'm surprised that you were able to do it without it. It's quite a few exits that you have to trial and error through before you can make your way through it. It's
Right.
interesting.
Right. It took a
There's a
while.
lot of enemies in there, but you can run past most of the enemies in this game pretty easily, but you might
Yeah.
not want to because you want to level up and whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, but still, it can be kind of a challenge and a pain to have to do all that.
But when you
Uh,
put on the spectacles and go through that
and
forest, the
they're
enemies turn
invisible.
invisible.
Yeah, so that's the trade-off. You can't just like wear those things all the time. They're designed to let you see like staircases that are invisible, but they have little like shining parts of them, so you know they're there, and you know you have to put on. They're not really invisible.
Right. But some
You-
but some staircases like have more sparklies. Like
True.
in the beginning, like the sparklies are very noticeable, but there were like a couple like in the end game or in the final dungeon where I was like,
Yeah,
is there something sparkling there? Like, I don't know. I
yeah,
can't really tell. And then I put them on. I was like,
right,
whoa, I found a thing.
right. Now, all of the dungeons are somewhat grid-based, I would say. Like they're on a
Yeah.
grid. They're pretty much on a grid. Everything except the last dungeon.
And by that, what Mel means is the rooms are laid out on, like you could draw them out on a piece of graph paper. The
Right.
traversal through each room is not on a grid. It's full
No.
action, real-time combat.
There's a couple places up on the mountain where things get a little not grid shaped, but they
Right.
usually quickly go back to being that way or close enough.
Yeah, nearly every room
Uh,
is a perfect square or a perfect rectangle or a perfect circle even.
yeah, most of the time. Like the mountain and the final dungeon are the exceptions. And my problem with that, both on the mountain and in the final dungeon, is that it can be very difficult to orient yourself when your mini map is oriented one way and you physically are oriented another way. And in
Of
some
the
of these
camera.
rooms,
Yeah.
you cannot move the camera
That's right.
sometimes.
Yeah, they put that
So,
a lot of rooms
yeah,
like that in the final dungeon where you could not move the camera. Yeah.
and you can't reorient the mini map either ever. And in order to make it easier for me normally, I would always orient my camera to face north.
Right. Me too. I'm that person too.
Right. Right.
Exactly.
So that it was matching up with the mini map that would show you kind of where you're going, and then you can expand the mini map to show like the full map, and then you kind of get an idea of where you're supposed to go.
Yeah. So
These
that
areas take that orientation away from you, and it's very disorienting.
Yeah. So that mini map, along with the grid-based layout of the areas, works best for the Clover Forest, the first forest that you go to, the Clover Ruins, and of course the Eternal Maze, which is just this long ass underground series of like
Hallways.
rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, it's like laid out perfectly 2D, just one room after the next after the next. And when you ever get to a place where you go upstairs or downstairs, the map changes to a completely different map, so it's pretty easy
Uh-huh.
to understand. But in
Yeah.
the case of the mountain, I didn't really have any problems because there's not
It's
that
not very big.
it's not that big. It's not really much overlapping stuff. But dude, in that final dungeon, which is amazingly crafted, like I swear they just made a real life castle just for fun, and then just like, okay, this is the level. Like it's
Yeah.
impressive. Like it's still for the most part linear, which is interesting for the most part. But then
Yeah, it is.
everywhere here and there that you go, there's like a place that you could go that connects to somewhere else, and that's when it gets confusing. And in that particular dungeon, like the map is not very useful many times because you go like upstairs
Yeah.
into a place that like on your map it looks like you've already been there, but
Yeah.
you were there downstairs, so that's why.
Yeah.
And that is crazy. And in the case of that last castle, it's super impressive the way you walk in there and you can walk up this this staircase that goes right up through the middle of the room, but it's like broken right in the middle. And so you have to go stay downstairs and go into some rooms, and you go upstairs somewhere else. And then eventually you go across that same, where that staircase was broken, it also has a horizontal. So it's like a T-shaped staircase. It's like a it's like a staircase that goes straight up to a hallway which is running perpendicular to it, right?
Right.
And so yeah, and then when you run across that and you're like, oh damn, I'm on the other side of the staircase. It's really if it's just shows you, it makes you feel like, dude, somebody put some work into this dungeon. And yeah, even when dungeons are mostly linear, yeah, when you can see how everything connects to everything else and is the upper level of that room I was in previously and all that, it's really, really, it leaves a impression on me at least. Like, I was really impressed by it, and I was, annoyed when I was lost. I got lost like 3 times in that dungeon.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. But yeah, I was really impressed. You go up on all the way to like one of the roof areas. You go across this one way and you open the sluice gate and the water pours out, turns the freaking water wheel, and then that opens like a bridge way up at the top, and then you have to take the stairs, go back, and then you can't access ways you could before because of the water. And it's freaking impressive the way they designed a lot of these levels, especially
it is very impressive. The enemies in there are sometimes a big pain in the ass.
Yeah, like I said, dude, that final dungeon has the guys that level you down.
Yeah,
I was real
guys
careful.
that level you down. They have just like a lot of really heavy hitting, hard to hit guys. So one of the mechanics we didn't really touch on is the you can just miss.
Totally.
There are enemies
reflex.
in there that have so you have a reflex skill yourself, and I guess so do the enemies. And the higher that stat is on the enemy, I guess, the more likely they are to just flat out dodge your attack.
Exactly.
And you won't hit them. Unless you hit from behind, I think that's like either guaranteed or almost guaranteed.
If
but
you
then
hit,
you have enemies that fly, that you have to wait until they
come down. Yeah. That's annoying, right? Yeah, if you get from the back, like the perfect like back damage strong hit, that is totally nullifies their evasion. They can't even escape at all.
I thought so.
And yeah, so for a long while, until you get leveled up enough, you can't even hit anybody from the front anymore, right?
Yeah, that's why I rely heavily on ice skills to freeze people. The lightning skills are less effective because it paralyzes them, but they can still turn to face you.
They just move slower then?
No, they just can't attack.
They just can't attack. That's right. Yeah.
They can't move or attack, but they can pivot. I'm like, well, that's the one thing I don't want you to do.
Yeah, that's that's the one thing exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, in the beginning they do a good job of introducing you to this mechanic, because the first time it's ever going to happen is when you go up a bat, like in the earlier dungeons, because bats all have higher evasion than everyone else. You'll walk straight up to them and it's like miss. It's like, what? And so you just got to let them attack you, and then you like sidestep it and run around to the back. And then yeah, whenever you get like a guy like on a slender staircase, on a narrow staircase, it's like, I can't get to the backside of them. Then it's like, oh, God damn it.
Yeah, that can happen a few times in this dungeon in particular. But yeah, I spent a lot of time roaming around, not knowing where the hell I'm supposed to go, and eventually, finding my way through this very big, it takes a long time to get through this, notwithstanding getting lost. It's just a big-ass place.
Yeah, that final dungeon alone took me over an hour.
Yeah, it took quite a long time to get through that place.
It was awesome. Maybe 2 hours even.
Yeah, maybe. So do we want to touch on the story, or do you have anything else to mention mechanics or gameplay-wise?
I think we talked about everything gameplay-wise. One thing I think I was starting to say that I wanted to talk about, that I think I got interrupted because we went on tangents. Not by you, but just by tangents, so it got interrupted. Is the reflex skill. What I originally wanted to do was like see what it's like to put all my points into the reflex skill, but I couldn't do that because I also wanted to wear armor is what I was getting at, and then we went on to a tangent. But the reflex stat increases your accuracy and your evasion. And so I was thinking, can I get to the point where like I'm hitting them and they just cannot hit me? And then, the reason we went on the tangent is that I eventually got to a point where I was hitting guys for only 1 damage. And so maybe you can't do that because you need strength points. I don't know. But that's a thing I'd like to try, to be honest.
Right. I guess the only other thing here, well, no, we'll touch on it with the story. So The story is pretty bare bones presentation wise. There's a handful of spoken cutscenes with some kind of cringy dialogue, like voice acting, CG cutscenes, and then the
Do,
rest of it
do
is in game with like no voice acting and text boxes.
Okay, so before we go into like the story, dude,
Yeah,
how about that opening FMV? Do you remember all the freaking Arabian orchestral music and stuff in
yeah,
it?
it was pretty wild.
Yeah, like I love how they put the little Arabian flavor on it. They use that kind of scale for the melodies and
Yeah,
stuff. That made it stand out to me, just that one aspect, because there's a lot of epic orchestral music in games, and
yeah.
uh, it doesn't stand out. Just even if it's good, it doesn't really feel like different from anything else. This one, man, I was like, when they start getting all those choral voices and chorus voices in the background over that Arabian string melody, I was like, dude, Xanadu.
Yeah, very foreign sounding,
Right,
mythical place with the very similar sounding music to match. And everything about it was, I think, to both Japanese and Western audiences in the end, were crafted to sound kind of foreign and exotic. So this is
right,
a place that is modeled off of, loosely modeled off of Chinese myths. So
mm,
it's a town that's settled by someone called Kublai Khan, who is
right.
one of the successors of Genghis Khan in real life. But
Hmm.
so it's designed to be this sort of Chinese aesthetic to some of the backstory a little
Right,
bit, which
right.
would be kind of exotic and foreign to Japanese people who were the original audience, of course, and
And
to
for
us,
us
of
too.
course, as
Yeah.
well.
Mm.
So it works out that way. It's this very exotic sort of like mystery place that you're
Yeah.
going to.
And the thing, yeah, so like the whole legend in the game is about the wonderful kingdom of Xanadu,
Yeah,
legendary kingdom of Xanadu that used to exist, and it was like
right.
the greatest place on earth, or whatever. It was like
Yeah,
peaceful, and I really liked a little bit of intro, a bit of the lore that they used. They described Xanadu as like a place where, like, what did they say? It was like filled with men who were like hardworking and just. And I thought that was interesting because my what I thought they were gonna go for was like Xanadu is heaven. You can relax and do whatever you want all the time.
right.
Instead, but they said no. People who actually, have morals and work hard made this place great, which I thought that was a nice little, a little thing to add to it.
Yeah,
And there are lots of games, I think, anyway. There are lots of games, I guess I haven't played that many like this, where they talk about the heavenly kingdom, the promised land or whatever. I think there's lots of games and just lots of stories in general, even not games. With that kind of a setting, I feel like Xanadu Next pulls it off the best in a couple of ways. And one of the ways was the way that we just talked about with the whole um, with the music for me specifically. I said that it
hmm
sounded like Arabian melodies, and then but you mentioned that it's the Kublai Khan is a. I thought it was like based off Genghis Khan too, and so I was like wondering why Kublai Khan, and so yeah, like you said, that's a Chinese thing, and they put those together, I guess. But also, for those of you who don't know, this story is told in the Dark Souls method, where you just freaking find in this case in Dark Souls it's like you find a weapon or an item and
hmm
it says it, but in this game you find specifically story tablets. They're called
Yeah,
tabulae for the plural, and you find these tablets and these memoirs of
yeah,
the people from Xanadu. And I was so freaking invested when I got to a certain point in those
yeah. They really
memoirs.
start to turn something. So you find these things slightly out of order, which I
Yes.
think is important because you get bits and parts of the story not in the exact right order. You can go back and read them in order if you wanted to, but you kind of get the idea as I don't know that it's necessary, but I think that adds to the intrigue because you'll get part two and then you'll get like part six when
Yeah.
something has gone wrong, and then
Yeah.
you'll get part one, and then you and it's kind of really interesting. And there's I think like 10 or 12 of
Hmm.
each, the memoirs, which are written by an individual, and then the tabulae, which are these like mythical, like, and in the day of whatever the hell, tell you
Right.
about the land and the gods and the fight between the gods and the whatever.
Yeah.
And you have this personal account, which is another thing that you're collecting by a person that you don't know who it is, and
Right.
you find out who it is,
Yeah.
and it's really cool.
Yeah. So I was reading them, and in the beginning, like the Xanadu is this kind of place. I'm like, okay, that's fine, that's cool. And you find a couple more, and it seems like an average level thing to me until you get to the point um, where like you get to the memoirs and you realize, oh, okay, there's a part in the tablets where they explain how the dragon Galsis was defeated or whatever.
Yeah,
And the thing that they did is they didn't actually fully defeat him, so they just sealed him away or something. And
yeah.
and is it a point in time where you're gonna learn? No, I think let's go before that. So before that, you're gonna get a memoir, and this girl's gonna be talking about how her and her sister, how she is tired of having to take all these goddamn lessons that she takes all day, every day. And she's like, how come I got to do all this freaking studying, man? Jesus Christ. And, she writes about the time she skipped classes and ran off into the town and just went to the marketplace, and she thought it was the greatest thing ever. And then later she like starts talking about how, you know what, I got to work harder for my sister because my sister is going to get chosen for this thing. And I can't let her be chosen for it. And you're like, what the hell is going on? And then this is the point where I like instantly became unbelievably invested. You learn about how the Dragon Lord is defeated, and it was a princess sealed her away, and every firstborn princess from that day forward had to be the seal maiden, and just basically dedicate her life to keeping the seal intact, so that the Dragon Lord never breaks free.
Right.
And so I'm like reading this thing, and I'm like, wait a minute, is this about the freaking seal maiden? I realized I put it together for that moment, that she's going through all these hard ass studies
And
all
it's
day long every day.
right.
And so then I had the question, like, so how come her and also her sister are doing it though? Just the firstborn princess is supposed to do it. And then later you'll find out they're twins, and they were both training to do it just to see which one could do it better. And then the one of them got chosen. And before you find out that one of them gets chosen, though, you're going to get a memoir that says, I can't believe this happened. I am crestfallen. What do I do now? And I'm like, crap, what happened? And then you'll get the memoir that says the date is just one day before the crestfallen memoir. And it turns out her sister was the one chosen to be the seal maiden, and not her, who didn't want to be the seal maiden, but she wanted to do it so that her sister wouldn't have to do it. And when I got to that part in the memoirs, I was instantly hooked.
It's very well done. Something that struck me immediately, there's some opening written dialogue, and there's obviously dialogue throughout, but these memoirs and things are the bulk of it. It's written very well. It's translated into English
Oh, yeah.
very skillfully. This is not just like a rough direct, like we're interpreting the direct intention of the Japanese, because that never works. You have to have someone who is a writer take the ideas and make new things with it, because the direct intention from Japanese never translates well. It always comes off as like stupid or simplistic.
Right. I mean, how have JRPGs scripts been ever since, Final Fantasy 10 days? Everybody thought they were kind of dumb, right? The dialogue, anyway.
Yeah, and there are things that will be said in Japanese that are profound and meaningful in Japanese, but just sound like boneheadedly simple in English. And it's like, why are you a robot? Like,
right. A good example for the audience.
Go ahead.
A very easy to understand but super effective example. At the very end of Final Fantasy X, and without saying what's going to happen to the main characters, to Tidus, just at the very end, they hug. Tidus and Yuna hug, and Yuna says in English, in Japanese, arigato, which means thank you. And you just know that arigato in English, in Japanese, is way more important and deep meaning than thank you in English, because they changed it to I love you in English.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
so that's a good example.
That's way better than just thank you, right?
Right,
After
of
what
those
they went
sorts of
through.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a very good example of how you kind of have to have someone who has a feel for that stuff. And for a game that is, again, definitely a budget production, to have a really good script in it and good writing is really cool. It's cool to see. It's cool to see a game like this just like read really well.
Totally. I was into the, whenever they use the, old school Shakespearean type English phrases. Like there are lots of new words that I got.
There are kind of
like the word self-same. Like, oh, that's cool. I thought.
Oh, sure.
The self-same castle or the self-same sword or whatever. I was like, dude. Yeah. So I had to look that up. Is it just the same? Yeah, it's just the exact same one. The same. But it's a rare one, right? It's not as simple as thee and thou, right? Like they did with FF6. Those get used quite often. This one, I would say, does it a lot more skillfully, in at least the fact that they just used some less used words, I guess.
Yeah, I can't remember them off the top of my head, but I definitely encountered a few words. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, like definitely.
Good job there, right? Yeah.
Yeah, impressive. And that's where I kind of realized, oh, there's someone behind this who knows what they're doing.
Yeah. And so I wonder if all Falcom games are like this, because the Trails series are like this, right?
Heard that they are, yeah. So apparently this is a reputation they have. They take this stuff pretty seriously. They must hire people, with this in mind. So, which is good to hear, because we're probably going to be playing some Falcom games in the future.
Yeah, now that we like this one, yeah.
Right. So the initial setting for the story, we kind of talked about some of the endgame stuff, but the initial story is your silent protagonist, Knight, coming to this area called Xanadu, which has it's in a bad way. It's on the decline. And there is this this lake that you are coming in on. I guess it's connected to a river or an ocean or something. But there's a lake, and in the middle of it is this mysterious Castle Strange Rock.
Right.
Which is an incredible name for a place.
Castle Strange
Rock. I really
Rock.
like that name. It's so good.
You're into it, huh?
I just think it's a really cool sounding name. And the thing about it is, it only appears, like, people don't even think it's a real place.
Right.
Because it shows up in the mist, sort of.
Yeah, and they can't see it.
Away and they can't see anything. Like, you can see the lake is clear and there's nothing on it. But when there's mist obscuring the lake, it looks like there's a castle in the lake.
Right.
And that's initially, and everyone's like, I don't know what this is. Ooh, whatever. There's ruins all over this place. Who knows? And like you said earlier, you die.
Yeah, you die.
You die in combat to some other guy who's trying to, it turns out, save the world, but he kills you.
Yep.
And you are resurrected by having a guardian temporarily fused to you, which is apparently a thing that only happens to newborns permanently. But you've had it done to you temporarily. I don't know, whatever the logic is behind that.
It was because, like, you're the chosen one, basically, right? Was the reason.
Right. Well, sort of. I got more the impression like this was some sort of like a jury-rigged like magic thing that someone may have tried. Like, who would know to do this unless it had been done before?
Well, it's interesting because, like, I think it was Vorak, the guy that killed us, that said, "Oh, I see somebody still knows how to do. Somebody in this era still knows how to do this infusion thing that nobody else knows about. Not bad."
Right. Exactly. So you've been given this experimental magical surgery to have a guardian fused to you, but apparently it's a very temporary scenario, and they may leave, and if they leave, you die.
Yeah.
So the only way to get your soul back or whatever is to get the Dragon Slayer sword
from Castle Strange Rock.
From Castle Strange Rock, and it initially has nothing to do with saving the world or Xanadu or anything. but it's all a pretext to save yourself,
Right.
which I just think is a kind of a cool inroad to becoming the hero. You're just a dude who was very graciously given a second chance at life by a woman who this
Priest.
priestess,
Yeah, the priestess.
and they're like,
Lease.
well, you could go to this place where we think the sword is, and that would be the only way to permanently make sure this works.
Right.
And then that is also the pretext for saving the world. And it all feels interesting because they don't really pose it as we're doing this to set you up to be the one who saves the world. They're like, look, this is how you can stay alive.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, okay. And
Guess I gotta
then
do that
once
then.
you got the sword, they actively ask you, like, look, you could go. You don't.
You can go
You're
home now.
alive
Yeah.
now, and
Mhm.
then you choose not to. Now your character's a silent protagonist, so there's only so much like depth you could read into his motivations. But it's kind of a cool twist on the normal formula.
I think you're right about that. And an interesting, I mean, admittedly, I'm a little bit let down by what Xanadu was, though, because the whole thing is, you're told about this epic kingdom that was saved by these princesses or whatever, and like that's cool. I want to go to Xanadu, and then later you're gonna find a tablet about like the underground caverns beneath Xanadu, and
Uh-huh.
at first I'm like, is that the Eternal Maze? Am I in Xanadu now? I don't think it was the Eternal Maze though, because eventually you get to like the Xanadu Labyrinth or something, which is like the underground portion.
Yeah,
And it turns out Castle Strange Rock is Xanadu,
I guess.
right? Is that
Sure.
what happened?
Yeah, it's part of it. I think it's also those ruins that you were talking about underneath it. I think it's more. I think it is more, but regardless, we never really. The game is kind of limited in scope. Where I think everywhere. I think we're on. Xanadu is like a country, right? It's not a building.
A kingdom, right? It's a kingdom,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah, it's a big place. I think everywhere that you've been is or was Xanadu, and there's ruins and everything everywhere that you're running through. I
Hmm.
think the underground maze is part of it. I think that underground pyramid thing is part of it, and
Ah,
Castle Strange Rock too, probably. But well, that was made. They say there was a guy who
who built
created
it?
Castle Strange Rock as a thing for the dragon god.
That's right.
So that's different, but it's still part of it in a way. But the scope of the game is so narrow. Technically, there's one town.
Yes.
Presumably, there are other people still living here, but we only get to see one town
Hmm.
of like 4 buildings, and so it's limited in a way that I think just the scope of the game doesn't show it.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Um, it's I found the storytelling through the tablets and the memoirs to be way more satisfying or work on me more than whenever we met that Sage Theobald dude and that Knight Vorak
Yeah,
guy.
I never gave a shit about anything they said,
Right.
honestly.
Same here. So yeah, I kind of wish that they had left that out a little bit more and maybe
Yeah,
just
I
gave us the
agree.
ending. So how about that ending, dude? Because crazy stuff happens. So can I tell the
It
audience
does. Go ahead. Yeah,
who
I guess
was
this whole thing. We should probably put a spoiler warning like in the beginning of this
the
because we're just
beginning
gonna
of this? Yeah, because we even spoiled FF10 a little
we
bit.
spoiled everything. Yeah, a little.
um, so the whole time you're finding these tablets and the memoirs of one person, and as I said before, you learn from the tablets that every princess, the first princess born to every king or whatever, in Xanadu, had the duty to dedicate their entire lives to keeping the power of the seal on the Dragon Lord strong.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're gonna find out from the memoirs that those memoirs were written, and I can't quite tell for sure which one though, but by one of two, I guess by one of two princesses, and those princesses were both twins, and so they both had to go through the Seal Maiden training, and then they just the one that was the stronger one who could do the job better, they thought, was the one that was chosen, and that was
Yeah.
Princess Fleurette, right?
Right.
So that means the person who wrote the memoirs was her twin sister, Lisa-Lot.
Lisa-Let, I guess.
Lisa-Lot, right? L-O-T-T-E.
Is it L-O? Okay.
I think so. Yeah, I think it was Lisa-Lot. Yeah. So, okay, yeah. So I guess so she's the one. So Lisa-Lot, and that's, funnily enough, it turns out Lisa-Lot is actually the priestess Lise from the freaking town.
Yeah.
That kind of blew people away, I'm sure. And so,
Yeah.
so she wrote those, and she wrote them like 500 years ago or something.
I guess so.
So I don't know quite. I mean, I guess, and yeah, and so anyway, what happens is she's the one who her sister becomes the Seal Maiden, but so she's like, what should I do? Because I didn't want my sister to have the burden of dedicating her entire life to maintaining the seal. So she's like, what can I do? And what exactly did she do? Do you know? Lisa-Lot.
Nope, because it really does get kind of convoluted at this point.
Just at this point, yeah.
Yeah, at this point, so there is this dynamic between these two sisters, and like you were saying, one of them is stuck being this like eternal like failsafe against the resurrection of Galsus, but somehow, some way, one of them turns into his wife, or not his wife, becomes the host for the resurrected
dragon
wife
Galsus
of the dragon.
Wait. She becomes the host of the wife. Yeah, either Lisa-Lot tells, because there's another character gets involved. That's Lorelei.
Yes.
Is Lorelei the one who is the?
So there's this Black Bride character,
right,
who is the harbinger of Galsus, the Dragon King, who you do fight directly as like a separate boss, and you defeat this person. But the way it ended up working was this Black Bride somehow gets the Shrine Maiden, whatever, directly like infused with the Dragon King.
Right.
It
yeah.
really kind of falls apart.
Yeah. Lisa-Lot like ends up. What the end result is that Lisa-Lot, she's the one who ends up like sealing the Dragon Lord within herself or something, right?
Yeah, something like that. She seals it in herself, and then the twin. I don't know.
We're not sure. Yeah. So
I'm really not sure.
Right.
It was really kind of hard to follow. There was quite a few, like, I'm this person and this person, but I want to be that, and then we're twins also, and
yeah, it's really weird, and it's just. I mean, I understand what happened with Fleurette, no problem. Princess Fleurette, she became the Seal Maiden. I understand that. The part that's hard to understand is what exactly did Lisa-Lot do regarding the Dragon Lord and regarding the Black Bride? She herself did not become the Black Bride, did she? But she's the one who's saying the Dragon Lord is my husband, right?
Yeah, and she was wearing black, and
so she's the Black Bride then.
I think so.
So who the hell was Lorelei? Okay, I figured it out.
The original wife. The actual original wife.
Is that really? Okay. I know that. No, I don't know. I don't know. Okay, so we don't know about that. Okay, so that's
really not sure. But regardless, one of the sisters ends up becoming like the next host for the Dragon King. And then she turns into him and like in the boss fight, and then you have to fight her, which of course then means you have to seal him away.
Okay, wait a second. So right here, we're at the ending now. We still had to fight the Dragon Lord. It still came out, even though it was inside of her. It came out of her somehow. We fought him. He's like dead now, but he's unconscious now, but he's gonna regain strength again.
Yeah.
Right. Now, this is where the ending totally had me on an emotional roller coaster, because for a moment I was like, dude, best possible ending just happened, right? Because it turns out these women and all these other like sage people that you meet along the way, they were all turned to stone by Lisa-Lot. Like apparently she's just ridiculously powerful that she can petrify all of the people in her kingdom or something. Or maybe they're all in the same room when it happened. I guess they were. Everyone in the room, she can petrify them all. But they were all in different locations, so
Yeah, I don't know why they were all in different locations, like all over the place. I
right,
don't know.
just for the gameplay, I guess. But anyway, and it turns out, yeah, these petrified stone statues were real people that got petrified 500 years ago by Lisalot to protect them from the Dragon Lord or whatever. And
Yeah.
and especially like froze time on them all. Because the legend went that Princess Fleurette went into battle with all those 7 sages and they fought the Dragon Lord for 7 days straight, a one long ass battle, and
Yeah.
eventually emerged victorious.
Uh-huh.
But nobody saw what happened to Princess Fleurette. So, I mean, she must have won though, right? Is what everybody thought.
Right. So there was some talk about at the time there was this thing called the Dragon Fang, which is like an omen that the next person who can wield the Dragon Slayer and win will appear.
Right.
And that thing didn't show up.
Right. And the person also didn't show up. And
yeah.
And so it was widely believed that she must have defeated him, but actually Lisalot showed up, petrified them all, and which was like a way of freezing time for them, and sealed the Dragon Lord within herself. This is the easy part, really. And sealed the Dragon Lord in herself so that she could like keep it all just frozen for a while until the next person who is chosen by the Dragon Slayer's sword would arrive, because it never arrived. It was not Princess Fleurette. Now, this is the cool part. This is where the ending really got me. It turns out we are the one. We got the Dragon Slayer sword. We defeated the Dragon Lord. The freaking stars aligned, right? We are on track for the best possible ending scenario, yo, because all these people, and including the 2 princesses, are very young because time was frozen for 500 years. And the whole motivation of Lisalot was she didn't want Fleurette to have the burden of having to deal with the Dragon Lord. And dude, we killed the Dragon Lord for her. So now both of them can live together in perfect harmony. And they're like only in their 20s. They got their whole lives ahead of them. It's going to be the greatest time ever. Am I right, Mel?
Well, you would have been.
I would have been. Yeah. Then freaking Lisalot like just throws it all to hell. It's like, well, actually, you didn't kill him. He's back inside me again now, because we can't actually permanently kill him just with the sword. So what has to happen is you have to kill me, and then the Dragon Lord will die. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I guess that's how it works.
I know. They just threw that on us right at the end.
Yeah, they did.
And
but
so
then they throw another twist.
They do. So I'm like watching, like, and you know they're gonna have their scene between Fleurette and Lisalot. Like, no,
and they do.
We can't
they
do
have
it.
the scene. Yeah.
Right. We can't do it. We can't kill you. And they have their scene, and I'm like, is he gonna do it? Like, am I the silent protagonist gonna do it? Am I gonna stab her? And yup.
And they not only that, they make you do it with the game controls.
So how did it go for you? Because if you get close enough, the talk ability pops up, and I push the talk ability, and I talked to her first, and then
I didn't do that.
And you didn't.
No, I didn't think I could move, so I guess I just pressed the attack button.
Okay, yeah, and then I tried to walk away, like push down, and he just attacked her.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, no.
So same ending. That would have been cool if you
put
could
a whole
change
target circle on her and everything.
Right? Like she's ready to die. Go ahead, dude.
Yeah.
And
I have a target circle on me.
Yeah. And so he totally kills her, and I'm like, okay. So now Fleurette has to
go.
Well, I'm thinking, okay, so now the best possible ending that we're gonna get is Fleurette's gonna learn to live with this thing that happened, but she still doesn't have to take care of the Dragon Lord seal anymore.
Right.
And with that, Lisalot, even though she died, got what she always wanted for her whole life. And that's pretty sweet too, is what I thought.
In a way, yes.
And I think that, in my opinion, that would have been the best ending. But then
they both turn into a swan at the end.
Yeah, there you go. Princess Fleurette, like, instead of doing whatever ritual she's supposed to do to finish it off, turns them both into a stork.
Yeah, for some reason, and somehow that's okay.
And that's okay, yeah. And so they're gonna watch
somehow
over.
That doesn't, and then they're both as a single-minded entity going to now deifically fly around and I don't know what happened to the Dragon God at that
No,
point.
no. They said that now they both have to watch the Dragon Lord seal
Oh, right.
together. So, I
Right.
mean, that's better
Yes.
than only one of them having to do it, but it would have been best if we
I guess so, yeah.
either of the previous two scenarios would have been way better than what we got.
Yeah, now they're both locked into this. Like, does either of them want to do that? I thought the answer was no. This is like a horrible servitude that was being done out of necessity, and
Right.
maybe there was a silver lining that you could find on it, but now they're both doing it.
Dude, this is like
Yeah.
such the game to like if I found out, like I don't know that I've ever played a game, maybe one other game, that would be Dragon Quest 8, where after the ending occurred, I thought to myself, dude, if this game has multiple endings, I am so gonna go back and get the better one. This is like one of the most motivating games for me to do that. If you could just, if either of the two, even if just one of them dies, I think it's better than having them both. I guess they're together
Yeah.
forever now. That's
I guess
great.
that's the idea, but what does that mean? They're one bird.
Right. They're not even
What does
humans
that even mean?
anymore.
No,
Right.
they're not. They're not like, what are they doing? I don't
Yeah.
know. It's very like high concept and like now they are as one. Whatever. I don't know. Do you want to be
Yeah.
as one with your sibling? I don't know.
I mean, it's your favorite person in the whole world. I
guess,
understand.
yeah, they
But
do outline that they are very, very close. And I initially thought that the memoir was a man talking about his sister.
so did I.
And
At
I don't know
first.
whether it's just my internal bias speaking, but I initially thought it was some guy talking about his sister, and not I had no idea what was going on. But eventually, they make it clear it's not that way. And so, yeah, they're very, very, very close. And yeah, it was a kind of like you say, a roller coaster of an ending.
Yeah.
Bits and parts of it were stronger than others. I think they kind of did fall apart a bit at the end there with who's the Black Bride exactly, what's going on, what's the deal with the resurrection and the host of the sister and the maiden and the whatever the hell. Kind of gets a little convoluted. Then all of these other, what are they, sages, the people that got
the seven
petrified,
sages. Mm.
and those guys, and what exactly is their role in all of this? It's kind of not fully fleshed out. And then there's this short part in the beginning where you're collecting these crowns, which are like magical things that hold the.
That's not a short part. That's like most of the game. It's because you need them to get into Xanadu, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Castle Strange Rock. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah. So, well, it's short in like concept. It's to like collect these 3 crowns. Okay.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
And then, yeah, so there's that kind of floating in the air of it too. Hey, there are obviously parts of this that are intriguing and like I was saying, kind of done in a cool way that's a little different. And the writing is really strong. But as you were outlining, there are parts of the story that are just kind of hard to follow.
Right. I mean, all that stuff we mentioned at the end about what Lisa Light exactly did.
Yeah.
Was really confusing. But
And
I really
all happens in the text dump.
Yeah, but the fact that all that crazy stuff happened at the end makes me. I think that's cool. I mean, it's not the ending I wanted the most, but I thought the fact that they put all that crazy stuff, at least it leaves an impact, right? Better than not having. Better than they lived happily ever after. Maybe I don't know.
I guess whatever. It's kind of one of those endings where it's like, well, I guess I don't have to worry about that anymore. Like. I guess it took care of itself, sort of. Like you as the protagonist, like what are you doing? Just gonna be the one forever, and what the next king of Xanadu? What happens here?
Right. Yeah. But in the end, you just go back to being a bodyguard for Charlotte Wells, the researcher that you're accompanying.
Is that what they say happens?
Didn't they show them both walking off to the boat to go to their next area or something?
Oh, you're probably right. We never talked about this child that you are traveling with.
Right. So in the beginning, you're set up as you're just a bodyguard for this very young looking. I mean,
yeah,
not even young. It's just she's short because you can't really tell what she looks like. But
she looks young. If you look at the art rendering, not her character model, she looks like a child. And maybe that's just anime. People look young, whatever. But she definitely looks, and she's very, very short.
Very short.
I have to assume as she is a child, and then
And she's
she
an
is the person.
archaeologist or something?
Yeah, she's an archaeologist. She's translating these memoirs and tablets that you're giving her, and
Into the
then
current
you go to
English.
her, and then
Mm.
you read it, and then you read the story, and then she also makes you lunch.
Dude, you get freaking experience points for those lunches
Oh
too.
yeah, I know. But it's funny because they get progressively better
Oh,
if
right.
you
Oh,
read
the
the
healing
description.
of the lunch, yeah.
If you read the description too, the descriptions get better too.
Oh, I don't know if I read any of the descriptions of
Yeah,
the
the
lunches.
initial description is like it's a egg sandwich. It looks a little squished, and
Oh,
then goes on to like an amazing mouth-watering sample.
oh
This
wow.
whatever the hell. Like she clearly gets way better at cooking.
Oh man, I should have read those.
Kinda-
That's cool.
yeah, it's kind of funny. Like initially, it's like it tastes a little burnt. Yeah, maybe
Right.
it's a little too undercooked or overcooked or whatever. And then it just gets like more and more ridiculously good sounding.
I don't think I found all the memoirs and all the tablets, so I could probably still get one if I found.
I think I Ooh, I don't think I got all of both, but I think I got all of one.
Mm-hmm.
Which, but yeah, I think that kind of covers all the bases other than music. Did you have anything to say about like the auditory aside from
Oh,
the sound effects?
I do, dude. So I mentioned the sound effects as one thing, dude. They hit it out of the park with like the sword slash sound, especially when you get the back attack damage. That freaking
Yeah.
thumpy and like it really sounds like you're cutting into a big ass piece of meat, kind of a feeling. It's awesome. So I really like that. And then I mentioned the opening music with the exotic scale that they use. And they put that again in like the ending FMV. They put a really dramatic song. That's right. I remember the name of it, so I can look it up right now. They put a really dramatic song at the end.
Oh my God, right. I
Did
remember this.
that was a really dramatic song, was it not? And I'm trying to remember the name of
I
it.
kind of thought it was kind of bad. Like it had
Really?
lyrics, right?
It did. So it was
It was
called.
kind of like really fat. It was one of those things where they're matching the beat of the Japanese to English, and it just doesn't come through well, in my opinion.
Maybe, but I couldn't tell what they were saying, but it just sounded really dramatic, like just the music in general, maybe not the words.
It was very like whispery, right?
It was, right? Yeah. So the
Yeah.
song is called White Lie in Black. Lie meaning like
Oh,
when you
yeah,
tell a lie, that lie.
yeah.
White Lie in Black. And I thought the name was cool because I guess it's like something about the Black Bride and how she
Yeah, I
deceived the
guess so.
Dragon Lord or whatever.
It's very hard to hear. I think the actual singer was probably not a native English speaker.
I don't believe she was. I think it was Japanese. So anyway, let's just read them because it's kind of cool. May God forgive my white lies. That's dramatic, yo.
Okay.
For our love, for the world of tomorrow. Do not chase, but hark back. You see reflections of the true love. Do not demand, but visualize. And you hear rings of the pure chime. Yeah, I don't know what they're talking about. Do not chase, but hark back. You see recreations of the castle. Hey, they put that part of the game into the song. Cool. Do not demand, but visualize. You hear songs of the phoenix. She turned into a white phoenix at the end.
Yeah.
Okay. Is the foggy heart black or white?
Who knows?
Is the waven with like an apostrophe in place of the G? A waven tears deep or shallow? Is the courtly love black or white? Is the sleeping beauty distant or near? Interesting. You, the brave, have no fear to pierce the stillness of the tide. Here forms an invisible fate. You, the true heir to the sword. Yeah, okay. Never flinch from facing the state of the flux. Here sounds inaudible will of love. Now, both of the black and the white dissolve into the crystal sky. It's a blaze of the future, a bond of our love. That's cool.
I mean, that is very intense language.
It's intense, right? Yeah, it's dramatic. And the music itself was pretty dramatic, I thought. So I liked that too. And there was another scene, maybe before that or before that, I think, where it has another epic, exotic melody, freaking full orchestra. Or I think it might have been actually a scene when the castle gets like I think when you shoot the eye with the arrow, you have that
right.
one part where you shoot a bow and arrow just as a puzzle.
Yeah. I wanted to use that damn bow as a real weapon.
Me too, yo. I like that. And also, the Clover Ruins was like the coolest freaking theme ever, in my opinion. It's so dramatic. Just drama, man. It's just it's like the most kick back, relaxed kind of dungeon area ever. I mean, it's just a forest. But like, man, I was pretty impressed with the music in there.
Yeah, I thought the music was pretty good in this game. It didn't stick with me. Like, I don't have any of it in my head anymore, but I don't remember not liking it. So it's probably just because I have not the best auditory memory on the planet. But yeah, sound effects really good, like you were saying. Let's see. What else? Have we missed any major categories here that you can think of?
I just wanted to just reiterate to the audience that, dude, I'm really, really impressed by how the layout of the dungeons and the town are all interconnected.
Yeah, that's like one of those people like to draw analogs to this to Dark Souls
and stuff.
And this is definitely one of them that applies.
Totally. Yeah. It's really, I mean, in all honesty, I don't think it's that difficult because, like the entrance to the town, we made an entrance to the town over there. So all we have to do is make the path move around over this way. Maybe it's not that difficult, but when it happens, it feels good, does it not?
Sure. I mean, I think reestablishing these connections in ways you didn't realize were there is satisfying. It continues to get a big response. It's one of the things people love about the original Dark Souls.
Indeed.
Don't shut up about it.
Right? Nobody shuts up about that interconnected world.
Exactly. And I think for a good reason. When you pull it off, it works really well. Although in Dark Souls, to be fair, to give it its due, it's connected realistically. Like, really. These are load zones that are connected just by program. Like, they're not, the mountain isn't really there to the load zone.
Right.
So it's not physically near. In fact, it doesn't even look like it would be there. But you still get that satisfaction of, oh, this area connects. I'm back in town. Awesome. I need to be back in town.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the only other thing that I want to say about this was, how well crafted the dungeons were in terms of layout.
So the fast travel situation, I guess we could say, the reason these connected paths are important is because it's not easy to get back to a place you came from. You can warp back to town at any given point. And later on, like about 2/3 of the way through, there is a fast travel, like warping area that you can go to get to some places. But some places are pretty big. So if you run out of keys or you run out of healing, whatever, you need to go back to town or you die. Getting back to where you were at, not by a warping area, a shortcut really does become like, oh, thank God. And when those open up, they can really save a lot of time. So that's part of the satisfaction right there.
Yeah, exactly. Because you got to go back to town to replenish supplies or whatever. So, indeed.
Yep, exactly. Let's see. Those were all the notes I really had.
Yeah, me too.
So I guess it's safe to say that if you have, what was it, like $20, $15?
Yeah, something like that.
On Steam. I don't think it's on any of the other PC platforms. Not on console.
No, I think it's on GOG, G-O-G.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, that probably would be on GOG. So GOG and Steam on PC, if you're rocking an original N-Gage, I guess you can get it there, but I don't know what changes they made for the PC version.
It looks totally different, and it's probably got a way worse frame rate and all that stuff going on, right?
I don't know very much about the visual fidelity of an N-Gage or the sound or the controls. I'm assuming it's all bad.
Dude, the screen on the N-Gage is like, it's a portrait. It's like tall. It's not wide. It's tall. And you're going to run around in there, dude. Yeah, it should be interesting to play on that thing. We should look up.
If you guys have an N-Gage out there, let us know. Let us know if that thing's worth the money that you probably paid too much for.
Hmm. So that means the next time we will be doing Eternal Sonata, right?
That's correct. I have already begun playing this game on the PS3, so
Cool.
I don't see any of the other diversions coming down the line for our channel, other than whatever individual videos that we may be making.
Okay. Have you fought any boss battles yet?
Yeah, a couple.
So you fought the wild boar boss in the forest?
I did.
Okay. All right. So you got that's all I wanted you to play up to for the first one was just the second boss, but you already passed it. So
but I saved.
okay.
You know?
You can keep going if you want to. Okay. So let's just go up to wherever you go up to for the next one, and we'll talk.
I was thinking, since the game is broken into chapters, that maybe I could finish the first chapter, unless that is the end of the first chapter, and I should notice.
I can't remember where the chapters break. Okay. I'll look it up right after this.
All right. Well, at any rate, that is our goal for our next episode. We'll be doing Eternal Sonata. I'm playing it on the PS3 for the first time, and Zoltan has already played this game back when it was new.
Yeah, fairly new at least. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, when it was new, I played it. Yeah.
All right. So I will be participating in that playthrough. I encourage you all to play through with us. As we release our episode, probably going to release them all in one block.
I think so.
Thought that was the plan. So, read along at your own pace, ladies and gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess for this episode of Turn-Based Memories, Xanadu Next, strong recommendation, right?
Strong recommendation. Totally solid game.
Right. Pick it up if you're so inclined, and that leaves me to say, thank you. If you enjoy this show and you want to listen to it on podcasting services, you can do so. We're on several different podcasting services, like Google Podcasts and Spotify.
Spotify, Google Podcasts, those places.
Yeah, look for us there, Turn-Based Memories. Here, obviously, on YouTube, if that's where probably most of our audience is still. And, we don't do a lot of social media presence, so spread the word yourself, subscribe, and like the video. That does help, I've been told.
Yeah, I've been told.
We're not really a commercial business here, if you couldn't tell.
Yeah.
So, for our own gratification, give us a thumbs up. It makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Zoltan.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, and until next time, have a good day.
Goodbye.